Have you ever experienced art that fundamentally changed who you are as a person? A piece that so thoroughly examines what it means to be human, it's hard to articulate all that it means to you. Final Fantasy VII is one of those works of art for me. It's a game that's bold and daring, full of life, challenging players to question their own worldview. You play as a mercenary joining an eco-terrorist organization, for God's sake. You experience the world through complex, morally gray characters with complicated motivations and deep insecurities that are exposed throughout the gameplay. In this video, we will examine the story, the themes, and the characters. To do so, we will go through the painstaking minutiae of the game's story to discuss everything in detail. During that time, I'll discuss the moral dilemma of eco-terrorism in response to dire living conditions, the dangers of unremitting greed through capitalism, unethical scientific experiments done to push beyond imperial projection, and the lengths capital will go to ensure its interests. The importance of all life and how interconnected we all truly are, and the grief that comes after death and what to do to process it. Most importantly, we will discuss the fragile nature of one's own identity. Who am I? Nothing more than another person reuniting with my favorite game. By the end, hopefully I'll have exorcised this demon and explained the ambiguous ending's meaning, according to my own interpretation. Final Fantasy VII needs no introduction, but here it is. Let the battles begin under the rotting pizza. We begin with the stars, gazing into the great beyond, its mysterious, vast emptiness looming over us. It's as if you're searching for something. But what could it be? What could be out there? As you take in the night sky, a young woman's face appears, serene, graceful, glowing green from an unknown substance in the sewers. Something catches her attention, and she walks out into a busy, bustling road with her basket of flowers as the city before you unveils itself, and the bustling lifestyle in the city streets shows there is life here under the stars. As the camera continues to zoom out, you begin to see that this is but a small part of the whole. There is a central tower surrounded by 8 identical cityscapes, vivisected by energy facilities providing to the core. This is the upper crust of Midgar, an industrial city ruled by a single entity, the mega corporation Shinra. The trials of kings and queens are of no concern here, but more modern troubles await us. Interjecting scenes of a train flash before you as the camera begins to zoom in on the ending train station just in front of Mako Reactor Number 1. On the edge of the sector, train station attendants stand by as the train comes to a halt. Red turban bandits jump out and dispose of the train station attendants. Another mysterious figure, a man with a gun grafted onto his arm, runs out, waving in one more figure. Our main character, Cloud Strife, former first-class soldier. He's working as a mercenary for the eco-terrorist organization known as Avalanche. Their mission is to blow up the Mako reactors surrounding the city from which pollution flows freely. These reactors are owned by Shinra headquarters, whom controls every aspect of life in Midgar. Your character, Cloud Strife, chooses to remain detached from his partners in crime, uninterested in even learning their names. Once the lock is broken, Barrett, the leader and founder of Avalanche, explains Avalanche's philosophy. The camera zooms in to show you your first target. Although the planet's full of Mako energy that people use every day, it's the lifeblood of the planet. Shinra keeps sucking the blood out with these weird machines. Cloud doesn't care. Barrett continues his spiel about the existential threat Shinra poses to humanity. But Cloud feels it's not his problem. The planet's dying, and all he cares about is getting paid and surviving. Upon reaching the reactor's core, Barrett makes Cloud set up the bomb to prove his loyalty to this mission. However, before he can set it up, he has a panic attack. Something tells him this isn't just a reactor. He loses himself for a moment. When he comes to, he seems unaware of the temporary fugue state. Avalanche narrowly escapes from the blast radius of the impressive fireworks display. Manifold debris spreading from the blast to the surrounding city, its inhabitants likely making calls to loved ones, not knowing they'll never pick up or call back again. These are the actions of Avalanche. Their only concern, to keep the planet going just a little longer. However, there are real consequences to their actions that will ripple throughout the story. On their way back to the rendezvous point in Sector 8, Cloud comes across the flower girl from the opening. Behind her, an advertisement has fallen, cars are overturned, and debris is found all along the street. She wants to know what happened, but you warn her off. Little does Cloud know that they will meet again, and she will become important to him. For now, Shinra's forces surround Cloud, leaving him with only one choice, to jump onto a moving train at his own risk. Coincidentally, the members of Avalanche are on this train, and to their surprise, Cloud swings himself inside like an acrobat sticking the landing. Avalanche moves into another cart, scaring off the late-night rabble as they make themselves comfortable. Word has spread, and people are beginning to talk about what happened at the reactor. Jessie takes time to explain the Midgar map to us. She explains how each reactor is used for electricity and how the city is formed. She casually comments that each sector used to be a town, and each town used to have a name. But no one in Midgar remembers them. These are all communities that have been subsumed into a hegemonic entity, into Midgar, formed by Shinra, the only name that matters. The train passes through a checkpoint with an ID sensor device, but the fake IDs in our possession trick the system. Cloud takes this time to talk to Barrett about Shinra's upper plate. Barrett blames everyone up above for the suffering of the people down below in the slums. Cloud naively suggests that everyone should move on to the plate if things are so bad down here. These people are poor. Migrating up above will take money they don't have. The pain of leaving your home. As we will see, the slums are certainly destitute, but they are also full of life. Cloud digresses, realizing that no one chooses to live in the slums because they want to. They're just like the train that Cloud is on. It can't run anywhere except where its rails take it. Just like the people can't go anywhere. They're confined to their fates and must keep moving forward. Once we finally get to the Sector 7 slums, you can talk to a guy that's hanging out just below the support pillar under the rotting pizza. He too has heard of the bombing and worries about what would happen if the pillar should come down. The consequences would be dire. You can use this moment to marvel at the scale of this enormous supercity. The pillar, a masterpiece of engineering and construction, supporting all the life above. It's one of the few moments in the original game that truly gives you a sense of the scale of the city. This is a place where millions live their lives, above and below, moving ever forward into the unknown and unstoppable future. The people of the slums, despite all the open air above them, are confined beneath the superstructure, left to live despondent lives. The streets are rumbling with activity, and there are conflicting thoughts on the latest news. A child focuses on the excitement of the explosion, while his mother thinks about the people who got hurt while doing their job. Innocent people. The cost of freedom Avalanche is willing to pay. You head into 7th Heaven, a bar serving locals as well as the front for Avalanche's base. And a young girl is scared away by the mercenary. Barrett comes in soon and picks up Marlene, the young girl, and Barrett's ostensible reason for working for Avalanche. Everyone goes downstairs to have a meeting while Cloud has a drink at the bar with Tifa. She shows concern for Cloud, wondering if he's all right. Cloud assures her he is fine before joining the rest downstairs. Jessie is on her computer while Shinra News Network reports on the explosion. She seems a bit confused. She only made the bomb just like the computer told her to. Could it really all have been because of her bomb? For now, Barrett and Cloud have business to discuss. Their relationship at this moment is tense. Cloud's attitude doesn't sit well with Barrett. Barrett loses his temper easily from Cloud's observations. Tifa comes down as Cloud is ready to go back up. He asserts that he doesn't care about Shinra as Barrett believes, nor does he care about Avalanche, or the planet for that matter. Upstairs, Tifa pleads with Cloud to stick with Avalanche. She reiterates Barrett's point that the planet is dying. Someone has to do something about it. This causes Cloud to turn around and standoffishly suggest that Barrett and the others can take care of it. This has nothing to do with him. Tifa stops him at the door and appeals to him through their childhood friendship. She reminds him of a promise he made 7 years prior. A young Cloud and Tifa sit on a water well in their hometown of Nibelheim. The sky's stars prominently shine behind Mount Nibel. Tifa showed up late. Cloud was cold and worried she'd never show. Cloud tells her he's leaving for Midgar in spring. All the boys are leaving town. Cloud believes he's different from them. He's going to join Soldier and be first class, just as his hero, Sephiroth. Tifa recognizes the name, the Great Sephiroth, a figure children would look up to, a figure that everyone would know. Tifa wonders if Cloud will ever be in the newspaper as Sephiroth has been. She asks him to make a promise. She wants him to come save her from trouble if she's ever in a bind. Cloud bashfully promises Tifa what she wishes for, a hero to save her just once in her life. And just then, a shooting star flashes brightly above them. Barrett comes up with Cloud's pay for the mission, which Cloud considers a joke. But this conversation opens up the cracks in Cloud's facade. He has kept cold and aloof, but signs of compassion are showing. He agrees to keep helping Tifa out. Not only that, but Cloud spends time talking to each Avalanche member regularly. Wedge notes that Cloud was impressive during the mission. He wonders if he ever gets nervous or if he's impervious to feeling. He knows that's not possible because Cloud has shown he does care, despite what he says. He saved Jessie at the Mako reactor when she fell into the grate. Wedge also points out that for all Cloud's bluffs, the very fact that he speaks to others shows he just wants friends. The next mission begins with Tifa joining us to take down reactor number 5. Avalanche's entrance into the train cart scares away the upper-class carriage members who call them hoodlums. Barrett does himself no favors by terrorizing the one Shinra manager that doesn't leave. The carriage checkpoint comes much sooner than expected with heightened security, so Avalanche is forced to hoof it down the labyrinthine train tracks. The mission continues as before. Climb in, set the bomb, get out. But this time, on the way out, they're confronted with someone that they least expected to see. President Shinra himself. He's well-dressed and confident in his position, despite being face-to-face with known terrorists. Cloud's blue eyes help the president recognize that he is a former soldier. But he can't be bothered to remember every soldier's name unless they're Sephiroth. Who is Sephiroth? Where is he now? Is he but a memory? Then President Shinra says something particularly interesting. And such a waste of good fireworks just to get rid of vermin like you. So far, you've seen your character work as a mercenary for a group that's goal is to blow up Shinra's property. You've seen the results were far deadlier than expected. As a result, innocent people died. You are responsible for that, and your leader, Barrett, has accepted the death of innocents as the price to pay for freedom from Shinra and their pollution because the planet's dying. Their deaths do not faze him in any way, or he would reconsider his methods. He's only just destroyed the first Mako reactor and is already in the process of destroying yet another one. where innocent people are working. Barrett is a fully radicalized man that sees any means justify his ends. However, it wasn't long ago that we learned from the bomb maker herself, Jessie, that she was surprised with how much damage her bomb did. She followed the instructions on her computer to create the bomb. So what could President Shinra mean by a waste of good fireworks? Perhaps Jessie's bomb was never meant to harm people, only property, to hamper Shinra's Mako production. Simply put, President Shinra already knows Avalanche's moves beforehand and willingly allowed them to plant their bomb. Not only that, but he must have been responsible for the explosion of the first Mako reactor, meaning it's President Shinra that's responsible for the deaths of the innocents, not Avalanche. This titan of industry has sacrificed his own tendril of control and the innocent, hardworking people inside to have his news anchor report on it to sway public opinion against Avalanche. The loss of the reactors is of no great importance to Shinra himself because he has bigger plans for Shinra. So, is Barrett really that bad? We still have to question Barrett's morals here as a savior of the people and the planet. This is who we've aligned ourselves with, and we're only in it for the money, so we doubly have to question Cloud's morals. Ultimately, Barrett is oblivious to this matter, and will remain so throughout the game. He still believes Avalanche's actions led to the deaths of innocents and accepts that, leaving us with a leader without blood on his hands, but the willingness to get his hands bloody, and a main character that'll take any job that pays. There's no other way to say it other than, we are not good people. The explosion separates Cloud from Tifa and Barrett, and he falls down to the slums of Sector 5 onto a bed of flowers inside a church. Tending to him is the flower girl Cloud met earlier, Eris. She's flirtatious with him, sussing him out and asking him to be her bodyguard in exchange for a date. She's incredibly charming, even in the original, and she needs all the help she can get because the Turks are after her. They do the dirty work that Shinra needs done and needs kept secret. Together, Cloud and Eris escape from Reno. On top of the church, Eris reveals that the Turks have been after her. This strikes Cloud as odd, given the Turks are murderers and spies behind the scenes for Shinra. What could they possibly want with Eris? On their way out, Cloud jokes about Eris joining Soldier. There's a bond forming here that'll carry the narrative through to the end. It's touching to see Cloud slowly but surely opening up and not putting on a face. She recognizes that Cloud is a former Soldier member because she notices his eyes. When Cloud questions her about why she knows that, she won't say. There's more to this girl than meets the eye. Eris lives in the Sector 5 slums in a beautiful house surrounded by a field of flowers. This small section of the game gives light to the reality that humans can make a paradise anywhere. There's something angelic, almost holy, if you will, about this girl. And you're invited to stay the night by Eris, but are tasked to leave in the middle of the night by Eris's mother, Elmira. She worries for her daughter and the trouble she faces. The Turks have been after her for a long time. So you go to bed in Eris's house and fall asleep. Cloud dreams of returning home to his mother complimenting him for his growth and suggesting the ladies love Cloud. She gives him the talk all mothers give their children, disappointment in not having settled down. She wants him to get an older girlfriend, but of course Cloud is not interested. When you leave, you have to go quietly so Eris doesn't notice you going. But there she is, having somehow sneaked out before you. She wants to accompany you to return to 7th Heaven. Along the way, you come across a playground. Eris can't resist climbing up the slide and sitting down to contemplate all that's happened. Eris asks what rank you were. Cloud's mind flashes. First class. You remind her of someone. Her ex-boyfriend. He used to be in Soldier too. Cloud wants to know who her first boyfriend was, but she brushes it off saying, it doesn't really matter. Then suddenly, a chariot carrying a beautiful young woman comes smashing through the sector door. You see that it's Tifa heading towards Wall Market. Eris leads the charge in chasing after Tifa, who has been taken to the best character in the game, Don Corneo. To get into Don Corneo's humble abode, you must disguise yourself as a woman, as he'll only take 3 of the most beautiful ladies around. This leads to a side quest where you have to find clothes for Cloud to cross-dress as a woman. It's interesting, this moment in the game, because Cloud has to really let go of his chosen identity to save the girl he once promised he'd come to rescue when she needed saving. Having Cloud dress up emphasizes uncertainty Cloud feels about himself, but fortunately Eris is there to support him. She never puts up with his facade, but is always there to encourage him and get him out of his shell. She even gets herself a matching sexy dress to join Cloud. While doing this mission, when you go to the Honey Bee Inn, a hostess club full of annoying sex pests that the girls talk smack about in the back room, you can take a peek inside the Electric Queen's room. There appears to be a satanic ritual happening inside. The time is ripe, but these Shinra workers are impatient. Inside, they speak of a legend having been passed on through generations of a special place, a secret place. The Promised Land. One with blue eyes and a great white sword on his back will not lead us to the Promised Land. As soon as Cloud enters his own room, he has a psychic breakdown. Walking further into the room reveals yet another Cloud, head down, tormented by his own thoughts. You ask yourself, what are you doing in a place like this? This apparition asks the same thing as Cloud blocks something out of his mind that's bubbling to the surface. But what? You think problems go away by just thinking about them? You can't change anything by just sitting back and looking at it. Cloud asks what that means and only receives the message, it started moving. That's not distressing and won't become relevant at all later on. A worker comes in to help Cloud. Cloud recovers when a nice muscular man lays on top of him in bed. Make of that what you will. For now, Cloud and Eris head to Don Corneo's place and find Tifa in the dungeon. She's shocked to find Cloud here. A flare of jealousy ignites within Tifa as she bears witness to Cloud and Eris together. Don Corneo is an utter creep. He's flamboyant and disgusting, and ultimately chooses you based on how well dressed you are, offering the other girls to his underlings. When you don't want to play along, Don Corneo enjoys the pursuit of his lust. You stall until everyone comes in ready to fight, looking for answers. Eris, or Tifa, shows her more serious side when she threatens to remove Don Corneo's balls if he doesn't comply. Ultimately, he reveals Shinra's plan to destroy Sector 7, knowing that he'll get away with it. Is it really so unbelievable that they'd blow up their own reactor now? They're about to destroy their own sector! A cutscene in Shinra headquarters shows that President Shinra is making the final preparations for this homicidal attack. One of the characters, Reeve, expresses doubt, but Shinra coldly asks if he wants out. Reeve says no, but tries to plead with him as the head of urban development. Heidegger, who has sent the Turks out to do the deed, tells him to flush his problems with the rest of his crap. Reeve makes a Hail Mary throw by suggesting the mayor won't allow it. However, the mayor is but a figurehead. Real power comes from capital. Real power comes from control of information. Real power comes from Shinra. And President Shinra intends to use his real power to control the narrative and spin this oncoming disaster as a result of Avalanche's actions. Sound familiar? He'll cover for Shinra by sending in a rescue operation brought to you by Shinra Incorporated. While Shinra does spread their propaganda to keep a chokehold on their power, not everyone buys into it. In Sector 5, there's a man in the slums watching the news that's heavily critical of Shinra, believing that every word that comes from the president's mouth is a lie. However, he doesn't exactly side with Avalanche either. He's a real independent thinker, you see. He believes that Avalanche's members just want to live like they do up top. Later on in the game, in a moment of weakness, Barrett reveals as much before putting his foolish thoughts aside. Either way, this moment does give us further reason to question the motives behind Avalanche. Is it really to save the planet? Are the members of Avalanche just some young kids led by someone who envies the people who live above, and if he can't have what they have, no one can? Cloud and his girls have to make their way through the sewers and the train graveyard to run to the Sector 7 slums as soon as possible. It's already too late. Chaos is erupting. Members of Avalanche are dying, and everyone needs to escape the slums as soon as possible because the support beam holding the upper crust of Sector 7 is going to collapse, killing everyone above. Tifa, Barrett, and Cloud go up, while Eris goes to save Barrett's daughter Marlene. Each member of Avalanche can be found all around the support beam structure, breathing their final breath. This moment in the game is an adrenaline shot to the system, showing the severe lengths to which Shinra will go to maintain power. Countless lives are considered expendable, and it's up to you to save everyone. No matter whether Avalanche is genuinely guilty of blowing up and killing everyone in Mako Reactor number 1, Shinra's capacity for genuine evil is orders of magnitudes worse than Avalanche's carelessness. This is also a moment where Cloud shows his true self. He cares for his comrades in eco-terrorism. He tries to comfort them in their final moments as he races to the top to fight off the Turks. But it's too little, too late. Once you make it to the top, you see that the Turks are responsible for this atrocity, and that Sung, the Turk leader, has taken Eris and is taking her to Shinra headquarters. He escapes easily as the pillar begins crumbling down. There's nothing left that can be done. The only choice is to survive. The victims of a horrible crime can only watch as their certain death comes. Innocent people resting in the comfort of their own home, and bystanders in the street all suffer as the great pizza in the sky collapses on them and our heroes swing to safety. President Shinra watches over his works dispassionately. The mask of humanity fell. He had to take it off to kill everyone. Shinra headquarters towers above like the obelisk to a cruel god. Outside of the now destroyed Sector 7, Barrett cries for Marlene. Biggs, Wedge, Jesse, all the people he's cared about. What the hell's it all for? Cloud and Tifa try to calm him, but he can't process his emotions, except by channeling them through anger and violence. Tifa calms him down by explaining that Eris took Marlene to safety, to her home in the Sector 5 slums. Barrett laments the fate of Sector 7 and all the lives lost. Tifa questions whether they lost their lives as a result of Avalanche or not. Barrett rejects this hypothesis, accusing Shinra of the wrongdoing. They're evil and destroying the planet to line their pockets with gil. Barrett says they're going to kill the planet. You have to wonder what lengths Barrett is willing to go to now that his losses have compounded. Tifa has her reservations, so Barrett turns to Cloud, who walks off. The others catch up to Cloud, whose cold exterior has melted by this point, as he intends to go to Shinra headquarters to help Eris. He needs to learn more about the Ancients. Something flashes through his mind. In my veins courses the blood of the Ancients. I am one of the rightful heirs to this planet. Cloud shakes his head and comes to one conclusion: Sephiroth. Somehow speaking to some part of him, the team makes it to Elmira's house, where Elmira explains to you how she came to care for Eris. Years ago, Shinra was at war with Wutai. Every day, Elmira waited for her husband to return from the war. At the train station, she found a woman with a young child. She's ragged and beaten down. Elmira comments that this was a common occurrence. The woman begs Elmira to care for her daughter Eris. Elmira and Eris became close rather quickly. We learned that Eris grew up in a research laboratory and that her mother has already returned to the planet, so she's not lonely. As Eris grows up, she exhibits strange behavior, claiming to be able to hear voices that aren't there, voices of the planet. She breaks the bad news to Elmira that her husband has finally died in the war. We also see that the Turks have come for her many times in the past, as she was already part of an experiment along with her real mother. Her mother was an ancient. Sung states that the ancients will lead us to a land of supreme happiness, the promised land, if you will. Sung tries to manipulate them by stating she'll bring happiness to everyone in the slums. She runs off and has managed to avoid them for the most part ever since then. They need her, so she'll not be harmed. Eris brought Marlene but sacrificed herself for Marlene's protection. Barrett apologizes for what's happened, and Elmira rightly scolds him. Barrett cannot excuse himself. He only knows in his heart that his fight is bigger than the both of them. The planet's dying. He circles back to his desire to always be with Marlene. The team agrees that they're in it together, that their mission isn't over. They're now fighting for another cause, not just for the planet, but for the girl that protected Marlene. It's the first time Cloud is doing something for himself and showing that he's not an aloof, uncaring mercenary, but that he does care and that he's willing to fight Shinra Incorporated. With the team resolved to head to Shinra headquarters, I'd like to take a moment to reflect on the state of the slums. These are the lowest of the low in Midgar's society. The actions of Shinra are heinous and cruel, yet the people of the slums of Midgar make do with what is left to them. They have a vibrant culture, living in the refuse of a society that's buried them in industrial waste. People have made whole communities out of the garbage surrounding them. Homes and shelters in places the upper crust of society looks down on as they pass by in their trains. Wall Market is the best example in the game for this. There's business. Restaurants, gyms, clothing stores, and sleazy hostess clubs where the women are tired of dealing with slime balls. While it's a dark life where even the sun doesn't shine through, the people do. To get to Shinra headquarters and enact some form of justice, you must climb up to the top level of Midgar. The journey up is treacherous, dangerous even. Monumental heights enforce just how far down below they are from the upper class that work in places with opportunities like Shinra headquarters. Once you manage to make it up above, you have the choice of entering Shinra headquarters directly or going through a side route where you'll climb staircase after staircase to reach a higher floor in the building safely. Whether you take the safe route or the dangerous route, this further exploration north cements just how far above Shinra himself is, like a god in the heavens. Making it to Shinra headquarters reveals more dark secrets about this organization. Take for example the mayor of Midgar. It's revealed he's no more than a librarian tending to the books about Shinra's exploits, a mere figurehead with no power. Sick of his position, he encourages you along the way and helps you reach new heights, even giving you materia if you can solve his puzzle. Inside the conference room, the heads of Shinra hold a meeting to determine Shinra's next objective. Reeve has calculated the damage and the cost to rebuild, but President Shinra has no intentions of rebuilding Sector 7. Shinra points out that the loss of the reactors is of no concern because they are building the future of Mako. They are going to restart Neo Midgar. President Shinra asks that all remaining reactors increase production by 15%, much to the delight of Palmer, until he learns none of the profits will go to his department. Heidegger gloats about the increased trust Shinra will gain from this dastardly PR stunt. A new man walks in, Professor Hojo. He speaks of Eris as a lab experiment, disappointed in his current results. Shinra wants to know how long the research will take, but Hojo's estimates are extraordinary. He's concerned Eris won't live long enough, so he intends to breed her and continue research on her offspring. The meeting concludes. Along the way, you come across a tank. Within the tank is a monstrous beast, Genova. Cloud once again has a panic attack after looking at the headless figure. He mentions Sephiroth in the possessive. What does Sephiroth have to do with this? What is Sephiroth's relationship to Genova? For now, all we know is Hojo is keeping a watch on Genova for further experimentation. And at this moment, he's upstairs intending to breed Eris with a wolf-tiger-like creature. Hojo takes sick pleasure in watching up close. He feels he's helping them escape extinction through his efforts. The ends always justify the means. In his mind, he's helping these animals. In the background, you can see Eris trying to escape desperately while the beast looks tensed up and ready to pounce. Barrett shoots them out of the test tube and the beast attacks Hojo. The beast turns around to tell Cloud he wants to help. Hojo has called him Red 13. With Eris saved, there's no longer any need to be in Shinra headquarters, so all five split into two groups. It doesn't take long for the Turks to close in on you, however. They take you to President Shinra, and here he reveals to everyone that Eris is the last remaining ancient, the last Cetra. He needs her because he believes Eris can help bring him to the Promised Land, where he'll build Neo Midgar to extract more Mako, more profit. President Shinra has no concern for environmental damage, no concern for whether what he's doing is right or wrong. He only wants to make his dreams come true, and the only way these days is through money and power. Everyone is taken away to the prison cells where the crew can only sit and wait. Barrett is infuriated, looking to recruit new members to Avalanche. Eris is listening to the planet once again. She's so happy to see Cloud came after her. Cloud jokes back that he had to, as her bodyguard. She reminds him of the date he's owed, which catches Tifa by surprise. Tifa asks whether the Promised Land truly exists or not, but Eris doesn't know any more than Tifa does. She only knows about the Cetra and the story of the Promised Land. Eris can hear the cries of the planet. But Midgar is full of people and noisy. The only place she can hear clearly is the church with the flowers in the slums. Her mother spoke to her through the planet and told her she must leave to find her own Promised Land. She thought as she got older she'd stop hearing her mother's voice, but still her mother comes to her. With the conversation trailing off, Cloud takes a quick nap. When Cloud wakes up after arrest, everything in the game changes tectonically. Cloud escapes from his prison cell, walks around, and finds blood is strewn about everywhere. There are marks of a wild beast destructively making its escape, and then you find the Genova tank empty. Everyone follows the blood up the stairs to deal with President Shinra. But what you find is yet another twist of the knife that skewers the narrative entirely. President Shinra is dead. That's right, the story's main villain to this point has died 3 hours into the game. A katana has pierced through his mortal body, leaving no signs of life. Cloud knows it can only belong to one person, Sephiroth. The mighty soldier he looked up to as a child, Sephiroth. But how can it be? Sephiroth is reported to have died. Cloud and Barrett catch Palmer and interrogate him about what has happened. Palmer reveals that Sephiroth does not want Shinra to find the Promised Land, which makes Barrett wonder whose side is Sephiroth on. Cloud rebukes him, shutting down the idea that Sephiroth is a good guy. What happened to this fallen hero? The culmination of all these moments, Genova, the bloody corridors, Shinra's death, and Sephiroth's katana, feels so sudden it's almost difficult to keep up. But don't worry, Shinra's son Rufus is already on the scene to restore order. He seems completely unbothered, moisturized, happy, in his lane, focused, and flourishing due to his father's death. In fact, he ridicules his father's leadership, saying that he'll rule by fear and get things done. A little fear will control the minds of the common people. There's no reason to waste good money on them. Cloud tells Barrett to take everyone away. He wants to deal with Rufus personally. Our lab experiment, Flower Girl, and terrorists head off, leaving the mercenary one-on-one with Rufus, whom intends to continue Shinra's mission of finding the Promised Land, but also Sephiroth. He believes Sephiroth was an ancient, just like Eris. Perhaps Sephiroth can lead the way to the Promised Land? Rufus is easily defeated, but proves he's a total badass by holding on to the bottom part of his helicopter as it flies away. Everyone runs off to get back to the first floor so they can make their escape, and this comes in the form of the best FMV to grace the PlayStation 1. Cloud somehow, somewhere finds a motorcycle within the building and rides it around down the stairs while the rest of the crew carries on in a little light blue truck. Cloud motors his way out of Shinra headquarters, protecting his friends in their car until at last they reach the end of Midgar. With no one sure of what to do, now that they're all persona non grata in Midgar, Cloud vows to settle his score with Sephiroth. Barrett asks if that'll save the planet. Cloud's not sure, but believes it will. Eris too has a goal. She needs to learn more about the ancients. At last, you climb down to the ground level, leaving the unfinished highways of Midgar and entering a whole new world. The last 3 hours rushed by and yet felt like a fully realized, complete game. But now the game has finally opened up, and what a beautiful ride it's going to be. To begin with, you head to the City of Calm to get prepared for your journey, where you'll learn what happened to Cloud and Tifa on that day 5 years ago. Finally, outside of the grasp of Midgar, you can see the impact of the Mako reactors. Midgar appears as if it's within a crater. There's no life or vegetation within the impact zone. The planet really is dying. Additionally, later in the game, if you fly directly over Midgar, a haze of smog overwhelms the entire screen to further cement the damage created by the reactors. The environmental storytelling of the game, despite the limited graphics, goes a long way in making this world feel real. Even the people of Calm feel the impact. They have a recently developed Mako reactor of their own, and the people have mixed feelings about it. Some are bootlickers that can't imagine life without the energy that comes from the Mako reactors, and there are even concerns of the drop in plant and animal life around Calm. Inside Calm's Inn, Cloud relays the story of Sephiroth's death on that day 5 years ago. He was part of Soldier First Class, joining Sephiroth, and Cloud was heading to his home for the first time since he left Nibelheim. Sephiroth's power becomes immediately apparent as you're crushed by the first enemy. Sephiroth towers over you, and in one hit, the legendary soldier lays waste to the enemy. The ocean of power between you and your childhood hero strikes awe as you play, making you question how you'd ever be able to challenge someone this powerful. Another important question that comes to mind is, why is Sephiroth so powerful when they're both Soldier First Class? Cloud seems out of sorts and uncomfortable with returning, but Sephiroth, in his own way, tries to comfort Cloud by telling him he's never met his parents. His parents are unknown to him, except his mother, Jenova, the very same beastly humanoid we saw entrapped within Shinra headquarters. Sephiroth has been sent to deal with monsters appearing before Nibelheim's Mako reactor. Cloud spends some time touching base with people around town, like his mother. Tifa, in her charming cowgirl outfit, acts as the tour guide, taking us to Mount Nibel. Before we go, a photographer wants to take a picture. Inside the Mako reactor is something no one could have expected. There are pods that process the Mako. Inside the pods are humans that are drowning in Mako. They're deformed and grim. Sephiroth explains this is much more extreme than the process of making a soldier who is showered in Mako, changing their eyes blue. This concentration could only be the work of one man, Hojo. He's experimenting on these poor souls to create something. Sephiroth scoffs at Hojo, considering him a pale imitation of the superior scientific mind of Professor Gast. And then it happens. Sephiroth begins to wonder if he's like these creatures, if he's an experiment. He starts to wonder if he's not even human. The next day, Sephiroth seems cold, distant. He disappears, nowhere to be seen, until you go into the depths of the Shinra Mansion, an abandoned house where Shinra used to operate. Deep in the caverns of this place, down below the spiral staircase, past the catacombs, is a library full of research. Sephiroth has been there, reading without stop and learning about Professor Gast's work, studying Jenova. He reads about the ancients and wants to create a new world. He considers Cloud a traitor for being human, something Sephiroth has given up on entirely. Sephiroth leaves you alone in the mansion. When you chase after him, you find your entire hometown is burning in his wake. Sephiroth has left no mercy for anyone. Cloud's own mother succumbs to the fires. Surrounded by flames, you see Sephiroth walking off back towards the Mako reactor. He returns deep within and makes his way through a door you had not gone through previously. Inside is his mother, Jenova. He intends to reunite with her and remake the world in his vision. Tifa gets in his way and he slashes at her, wounding her heavily. It's up to Cloud to get in and stop Sephiroth, but Sephiroth has already made it to Jenova. He's ripped off the metal exterior protecting her, revealing the grotesque figure we've seen before. Cloud enters the room, and then the story ends. Cloud can't remember what happened next. He only knows that Sephiroth died. The path is ominous, dangerous, and the future remains uncertain. Along the way are fierce beasts, like the snake within the waters that can only be avoided through riding a chocobo. This snake is extremely difficult to fight at this stage, with it being impossible to defeat without grinding to a higher level. But once you ride a chocobo and pass over the lake, and make it to the entrance of the cave, you see what the man clothed in black is capable of. On a tree sits an impaled, mutilated snake monster. Here it rots, broken and bleeding out. The game is telling you that this mission is impossible. You fight on though, and continue to listen to the cries of the planet. Once you pass through the cave, the first and most obvious thing you'll notice about the next town, Junon, is the enormous canyon positioned towards the sea. Once you head into town, you'll find many of the residents are disgruntled. Junon used to be a small village for fishing. Shinra came in and built an underwater Mako reactor. And to top it off, they built a massive military base on top of the city, once again placing themselves above the local rabble. It just so happens that while you're here, Rufus is having his coronation as president of Shinra. This section requires you, as Cloud, to dress as a soldier for the first time in a long time. He begins to wonder when he couldn't stand the outfit anymore. You join the parade to please the viewing audience, and come to a halt to listen to the new president berate Heidegger for his performance lately. They are on the hunt for Sephiroth. To stay on Sephiroth's tracks, you must perform for Rufus once again to get on the boat to Costa del Sol. Rufus understands that Cloud's party is on the hunt for Sephiroth as well, so he tasks Heidegger with the responsibility of taking care of them. Once on board, it doesn't take long for a stowaway to be found. Down below deck, an unexpected figure finally makes his appearance. Sephiroth. He speaks cryptically to inform you the time is now, leading to a fight with Jenova. Sephiroth's ultimate goal is to find the Promised Land with his mother Jenova, to begin the world anew. Both of our remaining antagonists, Sephiroth and Rufus, have the same goal, to find the Promised Land, but they are diametrically opposed. The ship arrives at Costa del Sol. Rufus reprimands Heidegger for allowing Sephiroth and Cloud's party onto the ship. He demands results, which infuriates Heidegger, who's dealing with the stress of Hojo's resignation investigation on top of all this. Coincidentally, in Costa del Sol, you can also find Hojo catching rays on the beachside with beautiful, half-naked women surrounding him. It's not immediately apparent, but Hojo will be our third antagonist of the game, indicated by his own personal search for Sephiroth. While talking to you, he's reminded of a theory of his and asks if you've had the feeling something is calling you, or that you had some place to visit. Cloud boldly states, "I'll go anywhere Sephiroth is at." Hojo is merely amused by this and wants you to be his test subject until he recognizes Eris, the Ancient. She asks him if Jenova and Sephiroth are ancients too, and if they have the same blood, but he refuses to answer her, only mumbling something about heading west. Is he deliberately leading the team on to find Sephiroth, or so preoccupied with his own thoughts that he let out some private information? Either way, the party is heading west toward Corel and the Golden Saucer. The journey up Mount Corel is a jarring one. Although the graphics of the time don't do it justice, one can imagine that the path up the mountain is one of beauty and majesty. Along the way, you can spot a man that's seen the man in the black cape. He warns that the path ahead is dangerous. Once you cross over the summit, a garish destruction of nature lies before you. The Mako reactor and the railroads that support it leave you feeling uneasy about the way nature has been altered so radically. Still, there is life that makes do with what's left behind On the other side of the mountain is Corel, a place Barrett is all too familiar with. Upon arrival, he's recognized and shamed for his part in the destruction of the town. Barrett's behavior changes drastically. No longer the loud, rambunctious leader, he takes his abuse from the people of Corel, who consider him a walking death sentence to friends. Barrett sulks around because he accepts responsibility for what's happened to Corel. This town is a wasteland. Of all the locations in the game, no community lives lower, subsisting purely on scraps found on the ground, collected for trade. This community shows that the situation in Midgar between the haves and have-nots is a paradise compared to the have-nothings. The town is furious about what has become of them, but there are those that recognize that what has happened was a mistake, and everyone knows it, yet no one will be satisfied until someone takes the blame. As you make your way to the tram up to the Golden Saucer, Barrett reveals his secret. He's from nearby this area. 4 years back, Barrett lived in a small coal mining town. That's when he first heard of a Mako reactor. The leaders of the community all came together to discuss what to do when Shinra proposed building a Mako reactor. Corel had been a mining town for generations, something their forefathers fought for, which motivates Dine to oppose bringing in Shinra's Mako reactor. Everyone else, including Barrett, agrees that coal is the past. Scarlet comes in to guarantee trust in Shinra's plan, promising Dine he'll be looked after so long as he agrees. Dine gives in, and that's how the Corel Mako reactor is built, with everyone believing it will make their lives easier. But while Dine and Barrett are out, Shinra burns the town to the ground, claiming that the recent explosion at the Mako reactor was initiated by a rebel faction. Barrett's anger stems not just from a desire to save the planet, but from the loss of his wife and the destruction of his community. At last, Barrett reveals his true initial motive for fighting against Shinra. Heading up to the Golden Saucer reveals a spectacle unlike anything you've seen so far. A place of wonder, a place of grandeur that's fun and exciting, full of activities for those that can afford it. And yet another location built far above the struggling poor to remind them of their place. Inside, you'll find a fortune teller by the name of Kate Sith. He insists that you take him along after he gives you 3 fortunes, the last of which is ominous, telling of the loss of something dear in Cloud's pursuit. Shinra's soldiers can be found scavenging the Golden Saucer in search of someone dangerous, someone that's shooting the people enjoying the sights and sounds of the Golden Saucer. Further exploration reveals that the person firing shots at everyone is a man with a gun on his arm, which means it can only be one person, Barrett. The leader of the Golden Saucer catches Cloud's party and imprisons them down below in the desert sands beneath the Golden Saucer. It's a decrepit, pitiful place where the only escape is to join the Chocobo races and win, if the leader of this place selects you to compete. You can find Barrett inside one of the buildings. He's reluctant to let you get involved, but the whole party wants to support him. You learn that in fact there is another man with a gun grafted onto his arm. Barrett and Dine return to find their beautiful and forested town burning. They try to run in to see if they can save anyone, but they're stopped by Shinra soldiers led by Scarlet, who orders her soldiers to shoot. Barrett is holding on to Dine, who has fallen, and they're both shot in the arm, disabling them, crippling them both. Dine falls, and now Barrett wants to apologize for everything that has happened. He wants to go it alone, but the party refuses to let him because they need him to save the planet. That's true friendship. Heading into the desert, Barrett finds Dine standing at the edge of the prison. Barrett confronts him. Barrett doesn't ask for forgiveness for what's happened, but doesn't understand why Dine is killing people that weren't involved in Corel's destruction. Dine's gone off the deep end, asking simply, "You think the dead understand whys? Is hearing Shinra's excuses gonna make people in Corel understand anything?" Barrett persists in asking why, and Dine finally says he wants to destroy everything. The city, the people, and the whole world. Dine and Barrett lost everything, yet their viewpoints on the world are diametrically opposed. While Dine wants to destroy everything, Barrett treasures the world and wants to protect it for one simple reason. When Barrett made it back to town, he found one lone survivor, Marlene, who is Dine's biological daughter. Barrett tries to convince Dine to change his ways by stating that Marlene is still alive, but this only reaffirms Dine's resolve. He wants to fight Barrett, something he's been holding off on doing due to believing his dead wife Eleanor wouldn't want that, and in doing so, he wants to bring Marlene to Eleanor. Dine's nihilism has made him a ruthless killer that will stop at nothing to exact revenge on the world. After losing his fight to Barrett, he laments that he's lost everything, and that's caused him to have suicidal thoughts. In a moment of clarity, Dine tells Barrett that even if he were to go back to Marlene, she wouldn't remember him because she was too young and his hands are too dirty to care for an innocent child like her. He asks Barrett to care for her, tossing him a pendant that belonged to Eleanor, telling him to never make her cry, and finally dropping to his death. Barrett is hurt by Dine's dying words, wishing he could save his friend, realizing his hands aren't any cleaner than Dine's. Two men facing the exact same circumstances diverging toward radically different paths, with one falling deep into an abyss of anguish, while the other keeps hope for the future. With the defeat of Dine and one successful run of the Chocobo track, your path sets south toward Gonzaga, yet another town carelessly ruined by Shinra's actions. On the path to Gonzaga are the Turks, casually gossiping about who has a crush on whom. The party realizes that something is amiss. The Turks shouldn't be this close. There must be a spy. With no way to determine who it is at the moment, somehow, the party continues into Gonzaga, whereupon they spot a graveyard full of mourners, lamenting lost loved ones. Beyond the edge of town sits a dilapidated Mako reactor that blew up, much like the one in Corel did all those years ago. But why would Shinra respond to the explosion in Corel with gunfire and arson, later rebuilding the Mako reactor? Meanwhile in Gonzaga, they let the Mako reactor remain in disrepair. Simply put, it wasn't worth it. But the Corel reactor was. If you go to the Mako reactor in Gonzaga to explore, you'll find Scarlet and the leader of the Turks, Tsung, looking for a huge materia. Ultimately, the Gonzaga reactor was considered a junk reactor where only junk materia can be created. Scarlet's division has a larger budget and is up to no good producing weapons for Heidegger to use. The necessary materia can be developed in reactors like the Corel reactor, but that will become relevant later. For now, the residents of Gonzaga will tell their story. They tell of heartbreaking tragedies where people were lost, but also hopeful futures where people can live without Mako. One family recognizes Cloud's eyes as belonging to a soldier, and they ask about their son, Zack. Zack left Gonzaga a decade ago in hopes of joining Soldier, likely looking up to the famed military force the way Cloud did in his youth. The name rings out for Eris, as Zack was her first boyfriend, the one in Soldier that she told you about in Midgard. Tifa also responds to the name, and the two women walk out of the house. Talking to Eris reveals that he went missing on a mission 5 years ago. Somehow, Cloud has never heard of Zack. Yet if we are to believe Cloud's recollection of the Nibelheim incident, he was in Soldier at the same time as Zack, both first class. Cloud's cold exterior has long been seen through by the two women in his life, but now the revelation of Eris's boyfriend is poking holes in his story about who he is. You, the player, have to start questioning, is Cloud really who he says he is? Talking to Tifa builds on this doubt. Tifa is more secretive about what she knows. She doubles down on denying ever knowing Zack. She turns around in frustration and remains silent, and then snaps at Cloud for joining Soldier just like Zack did. Cloud meekly responds, "There were a lot of guys like that back then." She simply replies, "You must really be something making it into Soldier." This statement comes off as sympathetic, but not complimentary, like she's still holding something back. It does seem strange that Cloud was in Soldier 5 years ago, having only been gone from Nibelheim for a short period. Meanwhile, Zack had been gone at least 10 years. How could Cloud prove himself to be an elite soldier in such a short amount of time, especially considering the disparity of power between Sephiroth and Cloud on that day 5 years ago? For now, the team heads towards Red 13's hometown, Cosmo Canyon. Immediately, Red 13 is revealed to be Nanaki. His grandfather is Bugenhagen, who used to work with Shinra in their scientific developments. Now in Cosmo Canyon, people from all around the world come to study planet life up in the observatory atop the mountain. We learn that Nanaki is a member of a tribe that protects Cosmo Canyon. He reveals that he's the last of his race, just like Eris. He idolizes his mother for her efforts in protecting the canyon, yet shames his father for his failures, labeling him a wastrel. He intends to remain here to perform his ancestral duties and prove he's more than his father could ever be. In Bugenhagen's house, Bugenhagen embarrasses his grandson by informing you that Nanaki is in fact a child in his race's years. Nanaki tells his grandpa he wants to protect everyone here, but Bugenhagen tells him he's lost perspective, ominously saying, when it's time for the planet to die, you'll understand that you know absolutely nothing. It's not clear when, but Bugenhagen is certain of its occurrence. He can hear the cries of the planet. Bugenhagen agrees to explain to Cloud all about planet life to help him in his quest to save the planet. He explains what they all already know, that when people die, their bodies return to the planet. But what of their souls? They return too. That's what makes the life stream. The life stream is a spiritual energy that each living being is born with that returns to the planet upon death. It's the energy that gives life to all trees, birds, and humans, to planets. It spiritually binds us all together as one collective. But if that's extracted and, say, burned for fuel and energy, it disrupts everything. Shinra's Mako reactors are sucking the life out of the planet, literally burning the souls of all beings for fuel and profit. Listen to the cries of the planet and you'll hear that Barrett was right all along. The planet's dying. To learn more, you must listen to the elders. But to do that, you need Nanaki by your side. Everyone in your party is sitting by a campfire pondering what they've learned. Tifa gathers courage to ask Cloud about himself. She's remembering Nibelheim, but she falters until Cloud insists. She's afraid he's not himself, that he's going far away. You really are you, right? Barrett recalls that Avalanche was born in Cosmo Canyon, remembering that he promised they'd return to celebrate defeating Shinra. More importantly, he questions his resolve to fight on. He's not sure if it's worth fighting on anymore, but he ultimately reaffirms his belief that he'll do anything to save the planet. Whether it's for justice or revenge, Avalanche is born again. In the first and only time Eris shows doubt in herself, she talks about how the elders taught her about the ancients, about the Cetra, her ancestors, and the weight of being the only one weighs heavy on her shoulders. She cannot be consoled on this matter, despite everyone being there to support her. When Cloud asks her if we can't help, Eris remains silent, morose, and lost in thought. Nanaki tells his story to Cloud, but it fills his heart with mixed feelings. On one paw, he feels pride for his mother, but on the other paw, hatred for his coward father for leaving his home vulnerable to the Gi tribe. Bugenhagen interrupts the story to tell Nanaki that there's something he should see. Deep down in the canyon is a place full of the vengeful spirits of the Gi that could never escape. As you go deeper, Bugenhagen recognizes that Nanaki is ready to see what's down there. What they find at the end of the journey are the stone remains of a brave warrior that never returned home. A warrior that single-handedly kept the Gi out of the canyon. Nanaki's father, Seto. He remained alone despite the Gi's poison arrows entombing him in his own skin. Nanaki's mother asked that the cave be sealed and forgotten about, never revealing the truth to Nanaki. Bugenhagen showed Nanaki his father Seto to give him the courage to become his own self. He doesn't believe the planet can be saved, no matter if Sephiroth is stopped or not, but he wants to do something. Anything for the planet. He believes Nanaki should find out who he is and what he wants. He no longer has to be held back by the shame of a cowardly father. Now he knows the true courage of his father and can forge his own path forward to becoming his true self. The party moves on to Nibelheim and a reunion. The town of Nibelheim looks to be unscathed by the widespread arson committed by Sephiroth on that day 5 years ago. Likewise, the people of Nibelheim have no recollection of such an event, claiming to have lived here since birth, and becoming hostile when you push back on that claim. This is all part of a ruse by Shinra to hide their famed soldier's treachery. Just another tool in Shinra's propaganda machine. Spread throughout this would-be ghost town are tattooed figures in black cloaks, desperately trying to reach Sephiroth as well for the long-fated reunion. This harkens back to Hojo's last words to you on the beach of Costa del Sol, where he asked if Cloud felt like something was calling him. Each of these figures is searching for Sephiroth, crying out for his whereabouts. It's not immediately clear what this has to do with Cloud, but remember, Cloud did say that he'll go anywhere that Sephiroth goes. Speaking to the two cloaked figures up the hill reveals that they can hear, or rather feel, Sephiroth calling them. Exploring Shinra Mansion will eventually lead you to a vampiric figure, Vincent Valentine. He sits inside one of many coffins and tries to brush you aside until you mention Sephiroth. He asks you to divulge your relationship to Sephiroth and then refuses to elaborate on what he knows, speaking cryptically of sins and nightmares. You can call on him again and he'll tell you that he used to work for Shinra. Vincent Valentine was a Turk. Cloud relates that he also has a long past affiliation with Shinra, which prompts Vincent to ask if Cloud knows of Lucretia. She's the one that started it all, the true human mother to Sephiroth. That's not to say Jenova doesn't play a part in Sephiroth's creation, but he was mistaken in believing he wasn't human. He was born of a beautiful lady that worked as an assistant to Professor Gast on the Jenova project. From what Vincent says, it appears that Lucretia had no way out of the project because Vincent couldn't stop her, his one true great sin. He closes his coffin to let you leave, but on your way out, he asks if you'll meet Hojo. Unsure of the future, Vincent recalls Lucretia once more before agreeing to join. Many questions are raised by the introduction of Vincent. What does Hojo have to do with this? Was Vincent Lucretia's lover? Does this episode have anything to do with the way Sephiroth talks of Hojo never living up to the works of Professor Gast? He asks if Cloud will participate in the reunion. However, Cloud doesn't understand, so Sephiroth reveals Jenova will be there like a calamity from the skies. Cloud picks up on this and asks to confirm that Jenova is not an ancient. Sephiroth deems Cloud unworthy of going, but tells Cloud where he can find him. You must return to Mount Nibel and cross it, where you will find a new town that also has history with Shinra. Rocket Town is the location of Shinra's space exploration program. The most prominent feature of this town is the decrepit rocket hanging over the people like a relic of a bygone era. Speaking to the townspeople fills in the pieces of the puzzle. You learn that the town is full of former mechanics and engineers that worked on the space program. There was an accident that kept the rocket from properly launching. Tragically, it never got off the ground, so all the work was for nothing. But why? What happened? In the back of one of the houses is an airplane. If you go to that backyard, a woman called Shara will stop you. She's the rocket captain's assistant. She mistakes you for Shinra because President Rufus is set to arrive. There are hopes that the space program will be revived, so Sid is working in the rocket to calm his nerves. The climb up the rocket shows that time has not been kind to Shinra number 26, but the captain, Sid, is passionate about the changes at Shinra, believing a new president that's young and full of ambition will clear the way for a revitalized space program. Asking him about the rocket opens up a new chapter to understanding Shinra's place in the world. They were not always an energy company. In the past, they were a weapons manufacturer that started a meaningless war, the war with Wutai. One of the technological advances that came out of this war was the rocket engine. Prototype after prototype was developed until finally it was ready for testing, but disaster struck and the rocket never launched. Sid blames Shara for the failure to launch, degrading her in the process. Shinra gave up on the space program and focused their efforts on Mako shortly after. Sid mourns that he hasn't become the first man to go to space and may never do so because each day the rocket tilts more and more to the side. He's banking on this talk with the president to help him achieve his dreams. You ask to borrow the tiny Bronco and he scolds you for it. When you return to Shara and Sid's home, he treats Shara like a dog, cussing at her to get some tea. Eris asks if he's always like this and Shara blames herself for what happened. She recounts the story of the failure to launch when she wanted to check one of the faulty oxygen tanks but Sid hounded her, treating her like a dog, scolding her for trying to be safe when his big, important day was here and he needed to prove what a man he is by going to space. He entered the cockpit, but something was wrong. Someone was still inside the rocket. Shara was double-checking the oxygen tank. Sid's behavior continues to be incredibly toxic and disrespectful towards Shara. Obviously, he's put a lot of pressure on himself to achieve his life's dreams, and this is the big moment to make it happen. But Shara wanted to ensure his safety. It's incredibly difficult to give Sid a pass when he constantly degrades her, and degraded her even before she let him down. Ultimately, Shara can't get out of the rocket in time, so Sid stops the launch after just barely leaving the ground. Sid saved Shara and never forgave her for it, but she vows to live her life for him. Anyway, Palmer, head of the space program, enters the room. He insists Sid go outside and asks for a cup of tea. Sid pleads his case to Rufus, but Rufus is only after Sephiroth. Rufus believes Sephiroth can be found on another continent, so he's in need of a plane. Sid's infuriated that he has yet another thing he must give up to Shinra. Shara sneaks us to the back to stop Palmer from stealing the tiny Bronco. A hilarious fight ensues, leaving us no choice but to commandeer the tiny Bronco, picking up Sid along the way. Shinra's soldiers are prepared for battle though, so they shoot you down, forcing you to crash land into the sea. Sid realizes that he has no future in Rocket Town anymore, so he asks what they plan to do. Cloud tells Sid they'll encounter Rufus again in their pursuit of Sephiroth, so Sid agrees to join them. Sid tells them that Rufus is heading towards the Temple of the Ancients to give chase to Sephiroth. Upon arrival at the Temple of the Ancients, Aeris will run ahead and listen to the mists beneath a bridge. Aeris can hear the voice of the Ancients calling to her. There's a sense of unease and uncertainty with what she's hearing, so she asks to go inside. The only way to go inside is to first return to the Golden Saucer. To enter, you must entertain Dio by competing in the battle arena. You can't leave right away due to a malfunction with the transportation, so you spend the night in the hotel. Everyone stands around in the hotel lobby, and Cait Sith asks for a rundown of everything that's happened because he hasn't been around the whole time. Even Barrett agrees to hear the story, and he's been here since the beginning, still not knowing what the hell is going on. Sephiroth is searching for the Promised Land, where the Cetra will return. Shinra are searching for Sephiroth so they can find the Promised Land because they believe it will be full of Mako energy, and there's profit to be made. Sephiroth is also searching for the black materia. The team tries to make sense of the figures in black capes with tattoos, guessing that there are at least 13 of them based on Nanaki's tattoos. One of them was certainly the sickly man in Sector 5, who speaks of numbers and cannot be found after the reunion. Aeris hypothesizes that Hojo has something to do with it. After reviewing everything that's known, it's time to settle in. Aeris retires to bed unexpectedly. Nanaki is concerned that he too will suffer the same fate as the other tattooed victims of Hojo. Cait Sith, the fortune teller, feels they're in a bad situation. However, here, the culmination of all your choices leads up to this moment. You can go on a date with one of 4 characters: Garrett, Yuffie, Tifa, or Aeris. In my game, I made choices that led to Tifa choosing to go out on a date with me because I remembered she has something to tell Cloud. You go around and act in plays and go on a ride to enjoy the fireworks. Spending time alone with Tifa leads to an intimate moment surrounded by colorful explosive fireworks where she has difficulty coming out with what she wants to say. The words are stuck in her throat like a fishbone. After it's over, she wants to forget about it. When I first started the game, I thought this date would be more interesting than the one with Aeris. I was mistaken. I misunderstood Aeris as a character. She's got great complexity and has by far the more interesting date with Cloud that gets at the heart of one of the game's themes. On your date with Aeris, she speaks to Cloud about wanting to know him. Cloud, our main character that has been at odds with himself the entire time, putting on bravado to hide himself since the beginning of the game, has slowly been worked down into becoming more open with his companions, but he still doesn't understand Aeris. Aeris repeats herself. She wants to know him. Aeris has always been the one to see right through Cloud's behavior. Everything she does and says catches him off guard in a way that I think really comforts Cloud. He's found someone he can be himself with. When that date ends, Cait Sith can be seen exploring through the Golden Saucer, so you and your date decide to investigate. Catching up to him finally proves Cait Sith, to the surprise of no one, was the spy for the Turks all along. Sung catches the keystone stone and flies off. Cait Sith requests that everyone act like nothing ever happened, but Cloud refuses to accept that possibility. Cait Sith wants to stay with them because he doesn't understand why Cloud's party continues their pursuit. They don't get paid, they don't get praise, yet they risk their lives and fight on. It makes him reconsider his own life and what he's been willing to do. Cloud and his date aren't moved by Cait Sith's plea to continue helping, so Cait Sith reveals his trump card. He's holding Marlene hostage. This doesn't seem to mesh well with him reconsidering his own life and choices as a Shinra executive, but I digress. They agree to disagree and continue as normal. It's entirely possible that this was a ruse by Cait Sith. There is evidence later that suggests he never truly meant to harm Marlene, and taking her at this point brought her to a safe place out of harm's way, though was still a tool in his back pocket to maintain his position in the party. This stretches credulity given how it's presented, but I think it's possible to read the events as less sinister than they appear. Inside the Temple of the Ancients is the work of Sephiroth. Tseng struggles to breathe as he sits leaned against the podium. Team Shinra believed this would lead them to the Promised Land, but they were sorely mistaken. He rises to give you the keystone as Eris goes off to the side to cry for the man she's known since childhood. He's one of the few that's known her so long, which leaves her feeling conflicted when finding him in this state. The only thing left to do is to activate the keystone and enter the temple. Inside, you'll find a mysterious figure, teasing you along the way. They are the spirit bodies of the ancients, tasked to protect the temple. Lacking the ability to speak, Eris begs desperately to hear their cries, but cannot make sense of the feelings of the ancients. Deep inside the temple is a well full of the knowledge of the ancients. They warn Eris of a danger, an evil consciousness that's before them. She is shown a scene from before our arrival. The Turks were exploring the temple in search of the Promised Land. Tseng is left alone when suddenly Sephiroth appears. Sephiroth thanks Tseng for opening the door and tells him that he's becoming one with the planet. Sephiroth intends to meld with the spirit energy of the planet. All the wisdom and knowledge will be infused into his own being, creating a true god for the planet. He intends on absorbing the life stream into his own being and consciousness, his own maliciousness craving the power that comes with being omnipotent. Much like Shinra, Sephiroth plans to kill the planet by taking in its life force, but instead of enriching himself with profit, he shall become a god. The party rushes to the room where they saw Sephiroth give his spiel. Along the walls are murals showcasing the beliefs of the ancients, reminiscent of ancient Egypt. Sephiroth mocks the party as they make passage when one striking partition of the wall looms over Sephiroth's mad claim of becoming one with the planet. A large meteor appears to be crashing down behind them. At the end of the hallway, Eris asks how he intends on becoming one with the planet, and this madman reveals his disturbing plan that will reunite him with his mother. He intends on forcing the planet to heal itself, and to accomplish his goals, he intends on summoning something that could threaten the very life of the planet. Eris is incredulous, questioning how it's even possible. Sephiroth assures her that his plan to be reborn a god is possible, and to make it so, he shall summon Meteor. This man, 5 years ago, began to question his place in this world, where he came from, and who he is, only to delve deeper into his own delusional psychoses that he must reunite with what he believes is his true mother, a monstrous alien from another planet, Genova, and concludes the only way to do that is to summon something so powerful the planet will use all of its spiritual energy to recuperate the damage, which is the spirit energy of everything and everyone that's ever died on the planet, just so he can meld with that force and become a god. Men will literally destroy the planet before going to therapy. Speaking of needing therapy, Cloud chases Sephiroth to the mural of Meteor. His breath is rapid. He laughs. Black materia. Call Meteor. The girls call to him to snap back to reality. But interestingly, Cloud doesn't seem to realize who he is. He asks simply, "I'm Cloud?" He loses control of himself, but calms himself, seemingly having found his way. They need the black materia. It's what Sephiroth was after, but he couldn't take it himself because the temple itself is the black materia. The black materia is necessary to summon Meteor. There's no way to take the black materia without being crushed, as the puzzle to take it can only be solved inside. It would seem to make sense to just leave it here so Sephiroth cannot do anything. But remember, all of those black cloaked figures are reuniting with Sephiroth. He only needs one of them to take it. Cloud is adamant that they have got to think of a way to get it out. Thankfully, they have Cait Sith, who told us earlier that he's nothing more than a remote-controlled puppet. He calls in to ask to help. Eris asks to have their fortunes read one more time before Cait Sith sacrifices himself. He seems quite delighted to be part of the team, to be respected by his peers, something that perhaps he feels he's lacking back at work, which causes him to start questioning his own place. Adorably, and much to the chagrin of Tifa, Eris asks how compatible she is with Cloud, but something's wrong. Cait Sith is tongue-tied. He can't reveal what the fortune says, but Eris pleads with him. Cait Sith turns back and lies through his teeth, saying, "Looks good, you are perfect for each other." Cait Sith runs off, gleeful that he's part of the team and contributing to their cause, and then he solves the puzzle, and the temple shrinks upon itself, crushing the puppet. The team watches on from the sidelines and makes their way past the bridge to go down to the black materia to retrieve it. As long as the team has it, no one can use it to summon Meteor, as it requires great power. Eris tells Cloud that the only place they can use it is in the Promised Land, which Sephiroth cannot find because Sephiroth is not an ancient. But speak of the devil, and there he is. Sephiroth claims to have found the Promised Land. When he was killed and fell into the Lifestream, he gained the knowledge and wisdom of the ancients and those that came after the ancients, and now he plans to create the future. Eris refuses to let him have his way, but Sephiroth toys with Cloud. He tells him to wake up and floats down to him. In this moment, Cloud disassociates and becomes the young boy that idolized the former soldier, First Class. Sephiroth calls Cloud a good boy as he beckons for the black materia. The young Cloud cries out in horror and shame while the adult Cloud stands up and runs over to Sephiroth, handing over the very thing Cloud said would be safer if his party took control of it and kept it away from him. Sephiroth flies off. Cloud doesn't even seem to remember what he's done, but instinctually is aware that he's responsible for failing everyone. He panics about what he's done, but Eris magnanimously, in her clemency, tells him that it's not his fault. Cloud whites out. He doesn't remember anything, believing his memory is faulty. He feels out of control of himself, as if he's in a dream he shouldn't wake from. While unconscious, Cloud dreams of Eris. Eris comforts Cloud for the mistake he's made, while she playfully hides behind trees in an unknown forest. Her intention is to take care of Sephiroth herself. In the meantime, she wishes Cloud to take care of himself so he doesn't have another breakdown. This gentle side of Eris portends to something ominous. Her destination is the city of the ancients, the ancestral lands of the Cetra. She runs off on her own. Cloud gives chase, but is unable to follow after when Sephiroth lands in front of him, threatening to put an end to Eris before she can put a stop to his sick plans. Cloud, however, is not in the forest outside the city of the ancients. Cloud is in Gongaga. Tifa and Barret are bedside. Everyone else is searching for Eris. Cloud knows where she is, but doesn't want to go anywhere near where Sephiroth will be because he's responsible for dooming them all. Barret reams him for his mistake, then goes on to say, "I know you've got problems, hell, we all do, but you don't even understand yourself," signifying that it's not just Eris that sees through Cloud's bravado, but the others can see through him too. Barret continues with a callback to something Cloud said earlier with, "But you gotta understand that there ain't no getting off of this train we're on till we get to the end of the line." This does nothing for Cloud's insecurities, which are increasing by the minute now that he's doomed the planet and his friends. He's afraid. Barret persists with his tough love approach, stating, "Goddamn jackass, that's what you are. Just think about it. How many people in this world do you think really understand themselves? People get depressed in life because they don't know what's up, but they go on living. They don't run away. That's just how it is." Barret has come a long way in his relationship with Cloud, to the point where it is clear that Barret genuinely cares about the young man before him as he gives somewhat fatherly advice. He's not quite there, but Barret, the father that he is, recognizes that Cloud must make this choice himself. By allowing Cloud this moment of agency, he enables Cloud to self-reflect, to find himself in this moment. Tifa is concerned, but Barret reassures her with a simple question. "You believe in Cloud, right?" I find Barret's belief in Cloud to be so powerful. From a tumultuous business relationship with the apathetic Cloud and their streak of terrorism, to slowly building trust in each other at each step, to finally coming around despite seeing Cloud in his lowest moment, having doomed the entire planet, the very thing Barret wished to save from dying, to staying by his side until he wakes up, then admitting his belief that he'll bounce back from this and help those who fight. Cloud takes his time to self-reflect and recognizes he's scared. though he's not sure why. Barrett's fatherly behavior toward Cloud, asking if he wants to find out about himself or if he's afraid. Even if he succumbs to Sephiroth, Barrett promises he'll bring Cloud back to reality. Cloud still holds doubts, but Barrett tells him if it happens, it happens. Don't worry about it. Perhaps Barrett's encounter with Dyne awakened his fatherly instincts, and he finally realized Cloud needs help. Once Cloud has found the confidence to join, the team makes their way to the city of the Ancients. It's a large, sprawling place deep within the valleys of the northernmost mountains. The music is mysterious, almost haunting. This is the only place in the game where you face no enemy encounters, allowing you to explore unimpeded into the buildings that remain empty evermore. The architecture of this ancient civilization begs the player to ask questions about the way in which the Cetra lived. How did they go about their day? How did they organize themselves? What games did they play? These questions remain unanswered and will be lost to time forever. But the hunt for Aeris continues down a winding path of crystalline stairs, whereupon you find Aeris praying at an altar a few platforms away. Having come face to face after the long trek to her ancestral lands, Cloud immediately loses control of himself. Sephiroth's grip over his consciousness remains too strong for him to resist, nearly striking her down as she sits in prayer. At the last moment, Cloud is able to get hold of himself thanks to Tifa and Barrett, the bodyguard able to keep her safe one more time for that future date they'll eventually go on. Aeris opens her eyes, smiling at her bodyguard. Cloud looks back when suddenly the murder of Aeris feels so cruel, and even after 27 years, comes as a great shock. This young woman, so full of life, has had hers taken abruptly with terrible violence. One of the main themes of Final Fantasy VII is life, the way in which people live despite having nothing, life on the planet, and people's inner lives. The mastermind behind Final Fantasy, Hironobu Sakaguchi, had wanted to explore life as a concept in a mathematical and logical way to overcome the mental shock when his own beloved mother passed away during the creation of Final Fantasy III for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Final Fantasy games are no stranger to the deaths of characters. Arya Bennett, Talus Sage, and General Leo all lose their lives in their respective games. With new technology to make a more cinematic games, Hironobu Sakaguchi went for a bold approach of killing everyone you love. Every other member of Avalanche was brutally murdered by the Turks before countless die in the collapse of the support beam holding up Sector 7 in Midgar. The game faked us out with the quote-unquote death of Cait Sith, only for it not to mean anything when the second puppet arrived shortly thereafter. But Aeris' death is final. She won't return. There will be no reunion with her. It's a shock to the system that this compassionate soul, the last of her kind, joins the life stream. Her death is the capstone on the theme of life. By introducing the antithesis with such irreversible, contrasting bombast, Hironobu Sakaguchi explores the pain that those who remain after feel at the loss of a loved one. The rest of the game will explore the feeling of loss that resonates with all of us that have lost someone important to us. Cloud holds Aeris. He can't comprehend what's happened, but sits there listening to Sephiroth blather on about his wicked plots. Cloud stands up for himself. "Shut up!" he says. "The cycle of nature and your stupid plan don't mean a thing. Aeris is gone." He mourns all the things she'll no longer be able to do, that he'll no longer be able to see her do. Unable to bear the pain any longer, he cries out in agony about the pain he's feeling, a pain he's not allowed himself to feel before. Cloud's description of the pain of losing a loved one hurts. "My fingers are tingling. My mouth is dry. My eyes are burning." These are the direct experiences of the game's creator put into our main character who can't bear to grieve, but Sephiroth simply taunts him, not believing that Cloud really feels anything. But Cloud does. "What do you think I am? He's human!" Sephiroth merely laughs at Cloud before floating away. Sephiroth's words like venom as he mocks Cloud ruthlessly before disappearing. His last words being, "Because, Cloud, you are." A battle with Jenova begins, and once you successfully defeat her, she finishes Sephiroth's statement calling him a puppet. Everyone on the team feels the loss of Eris. It's really hard to watch her lifeless body as Barrett shakes his head, then comforts Cloud with a "me too, buddy" pat on his shoulder. Tifa gently pats Eris, fixing her hair before going off. Cloud reluctantly walks over to the love of his life and picks her up. He places her body in the pool of water outside the shell house and lets her float away, down toward the white materia that once adorned her hair. Her lifeless body zooms out away from the camera for the last time, and she's never seen again. Later, Cloud reaffirms who he is. He still tells them he's Cloud, ex-soldier, first class from Nibelheim, but now he recognizes there's something he doesn't understand about himself, and that scares him. That something made him give up the black materia. Then Cloud says something damning. There's something inside of me, a person who is not really me. This plot point has been brewing for some time. Many curious moments of the impossible have arisen. Of course, Eris always wanted to know the real him, but there were other signs. Cloud claims to have no knowledge of Zack when he visits Gongaga, which seems impossible given they were both soldier first class. And whenever Cloud has told his story around Tifa, she's always reacted in a curious way. Even in this moment, Tifa has to question what's going on when Cloud reasserts his identity. At Cosmo Canyon, Tifa asks the question we the players must also ask Cloud. You really are you, right? Cloud wants to back out because he's not sure who he is anymore, a puppet or something else entirely. But he can never forgive Sephiroth, so he vows to join those who fight on. To stop Sephiroth, they must head north and stop the planet's crisis. The journey north is towards a cozy town that holds an incredibly dark secret. Snow piles high while children build snowmen. House lights shine bright, illuminating the snow outside. Speaking to the local reveals your destination, a huge crater where something from space crash landed. Elena, a new member of the Turks, shows up with some soldiers. There's something going on between Elena and Tseng. She's always appeared to have a thing for Tseng. When Tseng asked her out earlier to go with him, she appeared flustered. Here she wants revenge for what she believes we did to her boss. Explaining the truth about Sephiroth does nothing to persuade her, and she tries to take you out. If you fail, you will wake up in an abandoned room. This is the room where you learn the aforementioned dark secret. This is where Ifalna lived with Eris. The mystery of their abduction becomes clear when interacting with the machines in the background. But for now, it's time to relax and snowboard. Woohoo! Yeah! Alright! Yeah! Woo! Woohoo! Withholding information until it becomes narratively relevant. Awesome! For now, we end up in a cabin to keep warm before the climb up to the ridge of the huge crater. Barrett has yet another really interesting moment here. Before heading off to climb to the ridge, Barrett speaks his mind. This place kinda sucks. It's cold, uncomfortable, and worst of all, extremely inconvenient. It makes him pine for the days of living in Midgar again. Not out of a homesick yearning for a familiar place, but because he just can't see himself being here for long. Not without changing the place, at least. He recognizes the awesome power of nature in this land. Then he does something truly unexpected. He gives faint praise for Shinra. When you think of it that way, the Shinra don't seem so bad. Naturally, he immediately realizes what he said and takes it back. But this is a moment worth discussing. This statement harkens back to that casual viewer in Sector 5 of Shinra's nightly news that called the president a liar, but thought the people in Avalanche only really wanted to live like those on top, not to save the planet. I think it's important to point this moment out because it's not outside Barrett's character at all, despite his momentary weakness from the chilling winds blasting him. In fact, I dare say this strengthens the anti-capitalist themes of the game. Let's make Barrett's motives clear. He does not hate the industry of Mako production at first. He initially agreed with his community to allow Shinra to build the factory near Corel. They were already a mining town, so the industry of energy production was familiar to him. He only learns to hate it when Shinra ruthlessly slaughters his people and burns his village to the ground, leaving the remains in the shadows of a gaudy playhouse for the rich, while Shinra continues to extract Mako and therefore wealth. He's so motivated that while in Cosmo Canyon, he forms the fledgling terrorist organization Avalanche. His disdain is solidified when he works within the belly of the beast, living in the shadowlands of the 7th Sector slums, as an adoptive father with a future to look out for. They built over the people of towns with names long forgotten, and profited from the destruction of the planet exclusively for themselves with unquenchable appetites for avarice and gil. In this moment, he foolishly believes that what was possible in Midgar was possible through Shinra, but he realizes that he was mistaken. In an interesting moment later in the game with Bugenhagen, he speaks with Cloud about the airship you have commandeered. He loves the smell of it. The machinery appeals to him. He states, "I can feel the workings of the planet in the smell of the wind. I also feel the greatness of man's wisdom and the knowledge in the smell of machinery." You can also find Vincent on the Highwind talking about how Cosmo Canyon came to be. Professor Gas donated the materials because in his heart, science and nature had equal grounding. I don't believe the game is in any way arguing against the modern advances of technology or the benefits of industry to human civilization. The bombs Jesse built were small bombs meant to destroy the machinery and send a message, not burn everything to the ground. Shinra is analogous to corporations in capitalist societies, doing everything they can to extract more wealth. Barrett's slight confusion and Bugenhagen's appreciation for both nature and industry reminds us that the game is not an anarchy-primitivist cry to return to monkey, but a call to reassess our relationship as humans with nature and industry. Without that reevaluation, capitalists will be allowed to exploit the planet's natural resources, building phallic symbols of the dick they're fucking us all with and destroying the planet. Capitalist structures reward exploitation, but it doesn't have to be that way. The game argues it is possible to have a healthy relationship with both nature and industry, as both are equally important to humanity. Ultimately, Barrett doesn't think fondly of Midgar because of Shinra, but in spite of it. The long trek finally brings you to the ridge of the huge crater where you can see northern lights above. Fog has sunken into the crater while an enormous whirlwind in the center encircles ever-flowing lifestream energy sprays uncontrollably up and down. This is what Sephiroth meant by the Earth trying to heal itself. More of the hooded figures can be found searching for Sephiroth. They're trying to make it back to Sephiroth any way they can. Rufus and his cronies have located the Promised Land. They're flying just above, and they've brought a briefly retired Hojo with them who speaks of a reunion. Our heroes continue on their journey, seeing more of these hooded figures looking to reunite with Sephiroth, just like we are. At last, we come across him taking the lives of these cloaked figures. He vanishes, tired of using his current body, when you hear a voice from afar lay out the goals of the cloaked figures. They want to bring the black materia to Sephiroth, they being those who carry Genova's cells. Cloud questions who this master could be, but it can only be Sephiroth who drops in to do battle, which leads to the party obtaining the black materia and a bizarre confrontation with Cloud. Here we're brought back to Nibelheim on that day 5 years ago. It appears he's only trying to disorient the team, but the scene continues to play out exactly as it had before. Only this time the other soldier first class isn't a spiky-haired blonde native to the town. This time, it's someone else. Tifa's the first one to say something. Perhaps she knows more than she's letting on. Cloud brushes it aside as stupid, but that leads us to what happened later. The town is on fire again in this hallucination. Once again, we see the man with spiky black hair coming out of Shinra Mansion. Zangen, Tifa's teacher, asks him for help to save who they can as everything burns down. Cloud continues to deny what's before their eyes as an illusion. The camera zooms in closer to the fire, and Cloud calls Sephiroth out for trying to deceive them with false memories. Cloud doubles down on his memories of the fire, the pain in both body and heart. He knows his memories were real. Sephiroth taunts him, asking, "Is that so?" Then he degrades him with, "You are just a puppet. You have no heart and cannot feel any pain. How can there be any meaning in the memory of such a being? That is the illusion." Sephiroth explains further that his intention is to take Cloud back to his real self, the one that gave him the black materia. He finally asks, who would have ever thought a failed experiment would prove So useful. Hojo would die if he knew. Cloud, as it turns out, recuperated thanks to the efforts of Hojo. Cloud is supposedly an incomplete Sephiroth clone without a number and nothing more. Throughout the whole experience, Tifa will tell you not to listen to him. She wants you to keep faith in yourself as a friend. She tries to instill confidence in him by saying, all that talk of Hojo constructing you is a lie. Don't we have our memories together? This amuses Sephiroth. He threatens to show what's in her heart, causing her to turn away. Is it the case that Sephiroth is telling the truth? Or is he simply playing mind games with our main character? Cloud has had panic attacks throughout the game, and at every turn, everyone else has recognized that he's putting on a front. Is that front the real trick? Getting others to think he's a certain way? Or is he merely trying to trick himself? Cloud reaffirms that no matter what anyone else says to him, it's Tifa's opinion that counts. Tifa isn't convinced and tells him it's not true, but doesn't know how to explain the truth. Sephiroth returns to tell him that the cells of Jenova have merged with Tifa's memories, creating the Cloud that we've come to know. Cloud's had enough of it and once again tells Sephiroth to shut up. One question proves enough evidence to finally shake Cloud's resolve. Do you remember the picture that we took before we headed for Mount Nebel? The photographer that took the picture lies next to you, so Sephiroth takes it and shows the photograph. It's not Cloud in the photo. It's the man with spiky black hair. Cloud tries to reassure himself that the picture is a fake and his memory is the truth, but then he starts doubting himself. He runs down all the things he did upon his return to Nibelheim, visiting his mother, going to Tifa's room, and so on. He was excited to be home and be on this mission because it was his first mission after becoming soldier first class. But then he wonders, when did he enter soldier? How did he join soldier? Realization comes to him, but meanwhile Rufus and his cronies have found the treasure trove. At the heart of this place is a wealth of Mako energy and materia. If you look beyond the characters as Rufus insults Hojo, you can see the faces of kaiju that are just now beginning to awaken. Somehow Hojo knows that they are weapon, monsters created by the planet to protect it when it is in danger. Yet another among many secrets Hojo has kept from his employers. Nanaki is manipulated by Sephiroth to run on ahead in search of Cloud and Tifa while the rest are knocked out. Nanaki is the one currently in possession of the black materia. Cloud appears in front of Shinra's party. This spot is where all the living Sephiroth clones are reuniting. When Nanaki appears, Cloud walks over to him and asks for the black materia. In the background, Tifa pleads with him to stop, but he ignores her. Nanaki hands it over and Tifa begs someone to stop Cloud. Cloud apologizes to everyone for what he's about to do, especially to Tifa. He feels he didn't live up to who he said he was, who he told Tifa he would be as a young child. But he hopes that she'll one day meet that man. Hojo interjects enthusiastically. He's thrilled that his experiment, the cloning of Sephiroth and the reunification of them, was a success. He asks for Cloud's number. Cloud doesn't have a number. As a failed experiment, he was never given a number by Hojo. Hojo is shocked that only a failure was capable of making the journey to the Promised Land. In his insecurity, Cloud begs Hojo for a number, but Hojo shuts him down. Completely dejected, Cloud floats away. Hojo explains that he created Cloud as a Sephiroth clone after the Nibelheim incident. Jenova cells and Mako were used in a combination of science and nature to bring him back to life. He explains further that Jenova's body has the power to become one again, even if it has been dismembered, which is why all the clones are here to reunite. He believed Jenova would reunite at Midgar where it was being held initially. But in fact, Jenova moved and now has come to the perfect place to join the real Sephiroth. When Sephiroth died, he fell into the lifestream. That allowed him to enforce his will on the lifestream, allowing him to manipulate the clones himself. It dawns on Cloud that he was never in pursuit of Sephiroth, but in fact was being summoned by the will of Sephiroth through the lifestream. Cloud searches around for Sephiroth, and then he appears. He's encased in ice, perfectly preserved. Hojo is jubilant beyond reason. Tifa tries to reason with him that this means everyone will die once Cloud hands over the black materia. Rufus comes back to suggest everyone come with him to evacuate as he has much he wants to learn. And then it happens. Cloud does what he was summoned to do and gives Sephiroth the black materia. There's no going back now! We have failed in our mission, and now Sephiroth will have the power to summon Meteor. All that's left to do is to escape with our lives. The superstructure Sephiroth is encased in comes crashing down. An explosion of energy blasts away the airship that comes, and the weapons awaken. Our crew witnesses as each of the weapons make their escape to travel across the planet and protect against further destruction. Everyone manages to make it out alive and fly away. Cloud is not with the party. He is lost both physically and mentally, having faced the reality that everything we've known about him and that he knew about himself is a lie. Cloud is isolated on a black screen to show us his state of mind. He walks away while Tifa chases after him. Who knows if we'll see him again? We've already lost one major character and Cloud has served his purpose. But then we are treated to a real memory of Cloud. His arrival to the Sector 7 slums before the game began. The train station attendant and a stray dog are tending to him as he moans in agony. Tifa shows up to check if he's alright. She asks, "How long has it been?" He says it's been 5 years. Tifa says nothing in response. So Cloud asks what's wrong. Tifa brushes it off but thinks to herself that it's actually been 7 years. The time when he promised Tifa he'd leave and join Soldier. She recalls that Cloud actually left shortly after the Sephiroth incident and has been working as a mercenary ever since. Something felt very wrong. He knew things he shouldn't know and didn't know things that he should. She heard he was going far away and she didn't want that. That's when she thought to lure him in with a job working for Avalanche. A white flash slowly fades and we realize that what we witnessed was Tifa's dream. She's in a room with Barrett. As she's still waking, Barrett wants to know why she doesn't ask about him, about Cloud. When she comes to, she reveals she's scared, but Barrett has no idea what has happened to Cloud. No one knows. Tifa has been comatose for a week, and no one has heard about Cloud. She asks about Sephiroth, and Barrett informs her that ever since that day, the huge crater has been surrounded by an impenetrable barrier of light that protects him. At the same time, the weapons have been on the rampage, wreaking havoc for humanity. But Rufus, for good or for ill, has been fighting back. Barrett regrets that they have no time to deal with it, which prompts Tifa to ask what he means. Barrett opens the curtain to reveal the truth. Meteor is coming, and it is racing towards the planet. Rufus enters to say he thought Cloud would show up to save everyone, and that Hojo had his own interest in Cloud appearing. Rufus tells them that there's no more use for them before correcting himself. Right as he corrects himself, Heidegger comes in to tell him that the preparations of the public execution are complete. To maintain control over what little time is available, Shinra plans to broadcast the execution of the original Avalanche members they were never able to stop. In doing so, once again, they'll pin the blame on Avalanche. Rufus cynically states, people are ignorant. They'll feel better as long as someone is punished. Their control of the narrative pacifies the bitter feelings of the unfairness in their lives, placated once again by Shinra's lies so no one rises up to threaten the status quo. Inside a conference room, cameras are set up to broadcast the deaths of our heroes. Scarlet is in charge of the operation to restore public faith in Shinra. She believes that people secretly love this stuff. Bravely, Barrett offers to be the first one to be executed after Tifa is taken away. Scarlet gleefully asks the camera to catch their tearful goodbyes. Scarlet brings Tifa into a gas chamber and calls her a stuck-up bitch before the guard accidentally drops the key. Right as the ceremony is about to begin, Sapphire Weapon attacks. An alarm scares everyone away in attendance, frustrating Scarlet. An oddly shaped figure walks up to Scarlet to knock her out with sleeping gas, only to reveal himself as Cait Sith. Barrett asks why Cait Sith is helping, considering he's part of Shinra, to which Cait Sith responds that he's got his motives. Meanwhile, Heidegger runs up to catch Rufus staring out at the sea where Sapphire Weapon is attacking from. There can be only one response. Use the cannon! Grunts inform Heidegger that the weapon is ready to go, and then it blasts out into the open sea. Soldiers watch on. The two leaders believe they successfully hit Weapon, thereby evading danger. But Weapon presses on at breakneck speeds. Everyone on the dock opens fire with everything they have, but to no avail. Nothing will slow down Weapon's approach. Barrett leaves to see if he can find a way to help Tifa outside, running into Yuffie. They end up on the airfield ready to fight. At the same time, Tifa manages to wriggle her way free and searches for a way to turn off the gas. Sapphire Weapon surfaces with a malicious laser beam to Junon's military base, only for a point-blank shell from the large cannon to put an end to its reign of terror. Fortunately for Tifa, that laser saved her by giving her an escape route. She climbs her way to the top of the cannon and makes her escape. At the end of the barrel, Scarlet catches up with her and they have a catfight. Tifa is once again saved when she hears a distant voice tell her to run. She makes her daring escape to the airship and flies away to live another day. The workers of the Highland helped commandeer the ship because they saw Sid poking around, talking about how things would be easier if Sid ran the ship, instead of taking the abuse they normally do. Tifa is still despondent about the loss of Cloud. Nanaki suggests that he's still at the North Crater, but then says that there are places in the world where the life stream gushes out from cracks in the ocean floor. He's heard of a place like this, leading us to our next destination. That place is the town of Midel, which is far removed from the rest of the world. Inside Midel, Tifa overhears an elderly couple speak of a poor, pokey-headed young man with a long sword and blue eyes that showed up a week ago. She rushes inside the clinic where he's being held to find him in a sorry state of affairs. Cloud isn't responsive. Mako poisoning from the life stream is affecting his cognizance. The doctor asks everyone to leave while Tifa performs her own form of medicine, to which Barrett responds appropriately. The doctor and nurse leave her alone with him as she cries in pain. She can't lose him too. The thought of it hurts her too much. She's been holding on, believing in the memories they'd shared. Outside, the doctor speaks with the team and tries to convince them not to give up hope. Barrett retracts on the belief he once had for Cloud, questioning his actions, thinking he's merely Sephiroth's shadow. Tifa comes out and tells everyone there's something she wants to say, so everyone comes back inside. Tifa wants to stay by Cloud's side until he recovers. Barrett agrees it's best for the both of them. Before he goes, Barrett asks Tifa if she can really trust him. Is he really a friend and not just a shadow? She rebuffs him, and the team returns to the Highland to find out that Kate Sith is spying on Gahaha and Kahaha. Rufus has two goals: destroy Meteor and remove the barrier around North Cave to defeat Sephiroth. Heidegger confidently boasts that Meteor will be smashed to bits once the huge materia is collected from each region. If you recall, Tsung and Scarlet were searching for huge materia in Gongaga. This can only be made at Mako reactors. They have much more strength than the average materia, and Shinra intends on ramming all the huge materia into Meteor, creating a huge explosion. They have already collected Nibelheim's huge materia, leaving Corel and Fort Condor, as well as a huge materia in the underwater reactor beneath Junon. This leads us to our next goal: collect the huge materia before Shinra does. It seems like something they should let slide if it's successful, but Shinra would get the good PR that would further solidify their place as the global hegemony. Nanaki also mentions collecting the huge materia may also strengthen their own materia that they are using in battle. Barrett realizes he shouldn't be the leader while Cloud is out, so the team chooses Sid, who wakes up in the middle of the conversation only to have great responsibility thrust upon him. Some of these huge materia can be collected before and after saving Cloud, but we will discuss the huge materia now before discussing Cloud's journey to recovery. When you make it to the Corel Mako reactor, you find the huge materia is racing out of the reactor on a train. You get to chase the train down and fight your way to the front, and stop the train before it crashes into the wasteland that is modern Corel. This leads to a truly tense situation where you narrowly save the town of North Corel. The locals thank you for saving what's left of their lives. This is a nice moment for Barrett to espouse the truth in his heart that leads to some form of forgiveness. Here we have to play a little war minigame, and once you've successfully passed this, you get treated to the rebirth of Phoenix as the egg hatches and the condor, so to speak, dies. In return, you get the Phoenix materia and an explanation for the people running this place about their relationship with Shinra and the Maka reactor. They were trying to protect the condor the whole time, and in return, we got our second huge materia. At Junon, we learn from some grunt soldiers that Shinra intends on taking the huge materia to the airport to transport it to Rocket Town by way of Galnica. This leads us on a mad race to the underwater reactor where we have to give chase in a submarine. As we see the huge materia placed inside the submarine, Reno of the Turks tries to put a stop to us. Once you defeat him, you steal another submarine from the soldiers you trained and marched with earlier. 3 huge materia. Next destination, Rocket Town. The people of Rocket Town are untrusting of Shinra's motives. Is my rocket alright? Some seem enthusiastic for something to happen with the rocket, but the team fights on to enter the rocket, halted by Rude of the Turks. Inside the cockpit, all the workers are thrilled to see their captain return just as something exciting is about to happen. They're thrilled to load up on the rocket and hopefully take out Meteor. Cloud intervenes, but Sid tells him to shut the hell up. They want to run the rocket on autopilot, but there's a problem, and only one person can do the job. Shara. You can imagine how thrilled Sid is about that. Sid volunteers to pilot the ship. Cloud tries to persuade Sid not to, but Sid doesn't care. He believes in the power of science. He believes flight is a power developed by humans, and it might just be what saves the planet, what saves nature. Cloud offers one more grapevine to pull him back, only to be rebuffed. He's going to space, damn it! Before anything else happens, Cloud launches the rocket. Shara is a lot more competent than Sid gave her credit for. Despite the old age, the rust, the moss, and the fact that it's still using fuel that somehow hasn't gone bad, the rocket is able to lift off. Cloud worries that this is the end. All of this has been for nothing, but Sid brushes that worry aside. He's young. He shouldn't worry like this. Sid has no intention of dying here. He's got an escape pod for emergencies such as this. Sid directs us to the huge materia before we enter the escape pod. After grabbing the 4th and final huge materia, we make our way to a familiar room. As it turns out, the machinery that Shara worked on all those years ago really was broken and had never been fixed in the time between. Cloud and Barrett try to save Sid, who berates everyone for any act of kindness or consideration. That's when he realizes that Shara was right. Tank number 8 really was faulty. Shara runs in to save the day, however, helping us pull off the tank and save Sid, only for Sid to show his trademark gratitude. Everyone makes it to the escape pod. Sid asks if it works and Shara okays it. In a brief moment of change, Sid feels relieved because he believes in Shara now. There's no defending Sid in this game. He's horrendous, but our departure through the escape pod gives us time to reflect on Sid. Like a child, his face is glued to the window in awe of the magnificence of space. He's finally made it. His lifelong dream finally achieved. The stress of the initial launch years ago put him on the edge, not only to produce results but to achieve his dream. The failure to launch led to the end of his childhood dream, further turning his edginess into bitterness. This doesn't excuse his atrocious behavior, but once he sees he was mistaken, he understands that he can trust Shara and that he was wrong. More importantly, this achievement was only possible through the efforts of scientists and workers alike working in tandem to make an impossible dream come true. I think this harkens back to that Bugenhagen scene shown earlier where he shows appreciation for both nature and science. The fruits of scientific labor have a place in the lives of humans just as much as nature does. Anyway, the rocket finally crashes into Meteor. Everyone is watching, hopeful that Shinra's rocket will be successful. An enormous explosion blows, barely flaking off the crust of the meteor, not even so much as changing its course. Bugenhagen looks on from his planetarium in disappointment. The people of Midgard lose hope. All seems lost. But before we continue, we have to go back to see how Cloud came back. We have to learn the answer to Cloud's question. Who am I? After collecting 2 of the huge materia, Sid comes back to Mideel to check in on Cloud. There's news of recovery, but Cloud appears to be out of it still when suddenly Ultimate Weapon attacks. Fighting Ultimate Weapon forces it to run away, creating a temporary calm before the proverbial storm. Tifa strolls Cloud out of the clinic to bring him to safety, but she must outrun the enormous earthquake sucking everything into the life stream. Unfortunately, she's too slow and the 2 fall into the stream. Tifa briefly loses her composure in the darkness of her own consciousness until she wakes up in something much more horrifying. Tifa will do what Eris wished she could do. Tifa will bear the responsibility of truly getting to know someone. She's inside Cloud's consciousness, where there are 3 different clouds facing different directions while a transparent cloud looms over the rest in agony. In each corner there is a brief description of the painful memories that haunt Cloud, from secret wishes and tender feelings to the memory of Cloud's promise to Tifa on that starry night. But first, we must travel back to Nibelheim on that day 5 years ago. Tifa remarks that this is the same Nibelheim that she remembers. 5 years ago, 2 men from Soldier came, Sephiroth and another young soldier, First Class. Everything plays out exactly as we have seen twice already. Sephiroth walks in asking how it feels to come back to your hometown and stating his mother is Genova. We see Cloud walk in on the memory, but Tifa tells him this isn't the way. She's been hiding the truth from him. She believes Cloud never returned to Nibelheim 5 years ago. She waited for him to come, but he never did. The memory flashes away before the big reveal, so Tifa checks on the memory of Cloud's promise to her. Tifa asks Cloud to remember what happened. He looks so defeated as he holds his head down, looking away in shame. Tifa explains how she's felt through this whole process. She kept thinking he was the real Cloud and still believes in him, but Cloud doesn't believe in himself. That insecurity cuts deep and is at the root of all of our main characters. Tifa wants to explore the other memory to piece together this puzzle, but she realizes that it's not a memory. Memories are things that are consciously recalled. That's why they're mistaken or wrong. She's looking for something, anything that they can both recall. She believes a memory with her is the path forward. Then she asks why he wanted to join Soldier in the first place. As far as we know, it is because he wanted to be like Sephiroth, but Cloud's insecurity is exposed. He wanted to be noticed. He wanted to become stronger, so someone would notice him. Someone like Tifa. Young Cloud appears and offers to show her a truly embarrassing memory. He wanted her to notice him, but she was dealing with her own problems. Then we enter into Tifa's room through her window, and our understanding of both characters radically changes. Cloud had never been in her room before, having only looked up at it through the window. Tifa sits on the floor while other kids look at Cloud. She remembers that although Cloud had lived next to her, they hadn't really known each other. Despite that, she always considered them close to each other. Cloud thought all of Tifa's friends were stupid. Tifa defends them and Cloud admits he was the stupid one. He really wanted to play with everyone, but they wouldn't let him. He began to think he was different. Somehow, he was more mature. He hoped desperately that the kids would eventually invite him if he hung around. That's why he invited Tifa out to the well, even though he believed Tifa hated her. Still, after he left, Tifa thought about him often. She wondered if he got into Soldier. She read newspapers thinking she'd find an article about him. Young Cloud tells her to tell his older self to cheer him up. Tifa wonders what else made this day so important that they both remember it. Tragically, this is also the day that Tifa's mother died. Tifa only wanted to see her mom. Later on, her and her friends head to Mount Nebel where no one passes. No one living, anyway. Young Tifa questions if the dead can pass, if her mom passed through the mountain. She chooses to go, and a few of her friends follow her. Cloud tries to catch up. Ultimately, Tifa misses a step and they both fall down. Cloud was blamed for what happened, bullied by adults as well, not even worrying about his own death. This infuriated Cloud. He felt weak and worried Tifa would blame him, so he got into fights to deal with his feelings. That was the first time he heard about Sephiroth. That's when he planned to become strong. Tifa and Cloud feel confident that this is the real Cloud, not just someone that was created, so they head back to Nibelheim expecting to find the real Cloud. To do that, Cloud must go to the Mount Nebel Mako reactor. At that moment, Tifa's fighting with Sephiroth for killing her father, leaving her an orphan. She's slashed across the chest and flies down the flight of stairs. As she comes crashing down, the camera comes with her, but it's not Cloud that comes to save her. It's that man in the black hair. Zack. The very same Zack that Aeris mentioned on the playground in the sector slums of Midgar. The very same Zack whose parents wondered where their son went. The one Sephiroth showed us. The scene continues, and Zack too is thrown out of the room. Tifa wonders if Cloud happened to see all of this. If so, how? The camera goes down, and a figure enshrouded in shadow makes its way to the Genova room. That man is wearing the uniform of the normal soldiers. This is Cloud. This is our hero. And here, he is taking revenge for what has happened to his town, to Tifa, to his own mother. His bitter anger coming out through his words, the disdain and hatred he feels for the man he once admired, for the man he once respected. These are Sephiroth's dying moments. Cloud is the one that killed the mighty Sephiroth. Cloud recounts all the moments that led up to that scene. He was the one that kept Tifa out of the Mako reactor. He was never able to make it to Soldier. And in his embarrassment, he hid himself so no one would know. While Tifa was crying on the road, Cloud went back to get his helmet to hide himself, seeing the one person he cared most to impress. Tifa realizes that after all, Cloud truly did keep his promise to come save her whenever she was in trouble. But Sephiroth hadn't died yet. He was severely wounded, but able to walk out on his own 2 feet with Genova's head in his hand. Zack tells him to run after Sephiroth and kill him once and for all. But Cloud makes the foolish mistake of getting his attention first, instead of going for the killing blow. He's stabbed through with the katana. Sephiroth swings him around until Cloud overpowers him. Cloud then swings Sephiroth around through his belly somehow, and throws him into the underlying Mako, killing the super soldier. Cloud, having accepted who he really is, flaws and all, has finally become whole again, instead of the fractured psyche that he's been disguising himself with. I think one thing that really makes this game special is that every one of the characters in the game is dealing with raw insecurities that are relatable. They all struggle with their own identities in the same way Cloud does, though not as dramatically as to take on the persona of an entirely different person. Cloud, of course, dealt with insecurities due to bullying and feelings of weakness, so he imagined himself to be an elite soldier, first class. Tifa, a maid orphan, has a hard time saying what she wants to and buries her feelings, but tries her best to stay strong. Aeris grew despondent knowing she was the last of her kind and wasn't sure of her ability to do what must be done until the very end. Barrett, driven by revenge and paternal instincts, has hidden himself in shame over what he feels he's partly responsible for, so to make up for it he's formed an identity as an advocate for the planet, no matter the costs. Sid became an irate, foul-mouthed, abusive partner to Shera out of the stress to succeed and their ultimate failure to launch, causing him to lose his lifelong dream of piloting a ship to outer space. Yuffie struggles not so much with her identity, but with the identity of her people, the people of Wutai. Ever since losing a war to Midgar, they've sold out their culture for cheap tourists, causing her to become a materia thief to bring power and pride back to Wutai. Nanaki believed himself to be the son of a scoundrel unworthy of respect, until he found that, in fact, his father was a mighty warrior that made the ultimate sacrifice, allowing him to have the courage to forge his own path. Cait Sith is a Shinra executive that sees something in Cloud's party that makes him question his own place in the world and begin to subvert the beast from within to try and repair what damage he's helped sow. Vincent feels remote for his inability to protect the one he loved most when she needed him, but is urged to join the team to make amends. Each of these characters has their own battle they're fighting, their own complex motives and insecurities driving them forward to discover new things about themselves, to learn to what capacity they're capable of changing, of growing. And I think that's so poetic. If we examine all of their individual internal conflicts, we can see that ultimately each one of them is enough. They don't need to be more than they are. You are enough. After Tifa and Cloud return to Mideel through the livestream, Tifa tells everyone she found the real Cloud. He found himself. She realizes people have so many things pent up inside of themselves, so many things they can never forget. It's strange, but terribly common. I have my own demons that haunt me, literally plague my mind day in and day out, like a curse. And it's a constant battle to remind myself that I only need to be myself. I have nothing to prove to anyone. I may make mistakes, and I will have my successes. But no matter what the case may be, I am enough, and so are you. Cloud informs the crew about the truth. Nanaki tells him he doesn't have to explain. He's only been apologizing. He doesn't need to do that anymore. Cloud continues to apologize anyway. And he better! He's the reason the planet's doomed! He says he heard the story from Zack and played it off as a long form of charades. He goes on to explain that he's physically fit to be in Soldier. Hojo's process of using Genova cells made sure of that, but he accepts full responsibility. It's not the reunion, he says, but Genova cells, Sephiroth's will, and his own weakness. Even after everything, he's still Cloud. He vows to live his life without illusions, without pretending. Barrett interjects to say he's no different from before, but Cloud promises to put a stop to Meteor, since he's the one responsible for it. Barrett immediately is back on Team Cloud and asks if he's fighting to save the planet. It's like Barrett always says, "There ain't no getting off of this train!" But whatever happened to Zack? How could Cloud masquerade as Zack, and why has he gone missing? Why hasn't he returned to Gongaga to see his family? Did he stay away, ever a ladies' man, and find peace elsewhere? Well, if you go into the Shinra mansion at this point, Cloud will have one more memory. Inside the cellar of Shinra Mansion, Zack and Cloud float in cells full of lifestream to recover from the damage done to them. A man brings food to the both of them and Zack knocks him out to help Cloud escape. He picks up his Buster Sword and carries Cloud out of Nibelheim. Likely he realized that Shinra would not let them live, as they are witnesses to the massacre, and all witnesses would need to be silenced. Zack hitches a ride to Midgar, and the two fighters sit in the wagon of a truck. Zack plans on living with Eris until he realizes she lives with her mother. He notes that he doesn't really have any money, so he decides that he and Cloud can work in a business. He charmingly asks the driver what he could do, and the driver tells him to try everything because he's still young. Zack believes he has more brains and skill than most guys, so he immediately decides to become a mercenary. The driver overhears this and is so annoyed that he has to make a comment. But Zack is determined. He's enthusiastic about it because he believes this scheme will make him rich, which, once again, deeply annoys the driver. Love that guy. He's so real. He asks Cloud, who is incapable of response, what he's gonna do. Because Zack considers Cloud his friend, he decides for him. They'll both be mercenaries. Somewhere outside of Midgar, on the edge of a cliff, Shinra catches up to Zack and Cloud. Shinra's soldiers violently gun down Zack and double tap him for insurance. And when they look at Cloud, who is in horrible shape as is, they decide to leave him alone, expecting he'll succumb to his wounds eventually. Unrelated, but this moment made me think they were the guys I taught to dance and allowed to live in the submarine. I should have taken my revenge! Cloud does not die. He crawls his way to Zack, inheriting his Buster Sword, and slowly makes his way to Midgar, where Tifa will find him and ask him to join Avalanche. Luckily for us, her trainer Zanzog from Nibelheim brought her there after she was injured in the Nibelheim incident. Checking her piano reveals that Zanzog carried her to Midgar, all the while casting cure on her to save her and searching for a doctor he could trust. It appears all the stars aligned to ensure Cloud, Tifa, and Barrett would all join together and along their journey find others aggrieved by the likes of Shinra and help in the planet's crisis. Shinra's worldwide expansion has created tragedies all throughout the world. Whether it's the environmental destruction surrounding Midgar, Gungaga's Mako reactor exploding and killing the locals, Rocket Town becoming a notch in a rust belt once it no longer suited their needs, Junon's fishing industry crumbling under the weight of Shinra's military might, Nibelheim facing science experiments and angsty psycho arsonists, or Corel's destruction at the hands of Shinra. Every single place Shinra touches is corrupted and destroyed. Even the people of Calm, which is relatively unscathed, suffer from environmental degradation and new monsters endangering them. But there's one place on the map that we haven't spoken of in depth. One place that's hard to reach and quite challenging if you go there too early. One place, the only place, that has gone to war with Shinra. We need to talk about Wutai. We've had glimpses of the past when people have brought up Wutai. If you recall, Elmira's husband died in the war as she waited for him to return. Wutai is on an isolated island far removed from the major lands where Shinra has built its reactors. At present, Wutai is a terrorist trap, but it once used to be a powerful nation that rivaled Shinra in war. The game never explains how the war started. Using the text of the game, I believe we can come to a conclusion about how it started. If we use Corel as an example, we can see the true nature of Shinra. Simply put, Corel would have had to put up a fight to maintain sovereignty over their land, but instead chose to invite Shinra into their home and were punished severely for it anyway. What would Shinra have done had Corel said no? War. Which brings us to Yuffie, who has been hanging out in the background of this video for some time with no explanation for her existence. Yuffie is a young ninja. She's young and bratty and appears out of nowhere in the forests outside of Junon if you go looking for her. You have to choose what you say to her very carefully to make sure she'll stick with the team. She seems to tag along for companionship, but midway through the game it becomes apparent that Yuffie has ulterior motives. She's a ninja after all, and she's frustrated about what's happened to her hometown. It's a shell of its former self, the culture cheapened to commodity and service, with her father, Godo, leading Wutai to war, then backing away and turning the city into a tourist destination. She's fed up with the way Godo has changed things, commercializing and trivializing the culture so lame tourists will spend their money in the city has frustrated her for far too long. So she's made it her mission to steal materia for the benefit of Wutai, something they no longer have access to after the war. Her words finally break through to Godo, who feels remorse for losing the war and turning Wutai into this cheap resort. He feels he hasn't changed since when he wanted war, but after losing he had a philosophical debate within whether strength is for defeating enemies or showing off. Might begets might, the same as Shinra. The arms race with Shinra proved futile, only creating a more dangerous world, but Godo continues by saying he's hiding his strength at the moment for the good of Wutai. Strength without determination means nothing, and determination without strength is equally useless. He asks the team to take Yuffie with us because he has concluded that we have both strength and determination, while also charging Yuffie to go for the sake of Wutai. Just please come back alive. Duh! Oh, and don't forget to take their materia when you're done. It's a really great payoff for Yuffie that lets us see what has come of the war with Wutai, spliced with a good sense of humor. But it also shows that these are people who are led by a relatively rational, thoughtful leader that considers his next moves carefully. He doesn't let his baser desires, such as greed, control him. Of course, before this you can team up with Reno and Rude to save Yuffie and Elena from pleasure time with Don Corneo, and see a creep controlled by his lust see his end. That's pretty cool. We may now continue the story of those chosen by the planet. Let's return to what our heroes were up to just after the rocket crashed into Meteor to negligible results. The plan was a failure. Just as everyone is about to give up hope due to Shinra's failure, Cloud waxes philosophic about the planet. Sid comes up with a plan. He He's been thinking of how small the planet really is now that he's seen it from space. He's seen the vast enormity of space and now realizes how small he is too. He likens the planet to a sick child. What he means is that it needs someone to protect it. It needs them. Tifa and Barrett are moved by Cid's words. Barrett asks what he has in mind, but Cid hasn't thought that far ahead. Suddenly, the cries of the planet pierce our ears on the highland, which brings us to Bugenhagen. When we visit Bugenhagen, he prompts everyone to think carefully so they can find their way. Everyone's first thought returns to Eris. They can't help but feel she was right all along, that she was close but we couldn't see her. Together, everyone reaches the conclusion that they must return to the City of the Ancients. Inside the City of the Ancients, Bugenhagen comes to understand absolutely that the planet is in crisis. A crisis beyond human power or endless time. The only way to protect the planet now is to search for Holy. This is a summon of white magic that can stand against Meteor, the summon of black magic. It is the last hope to save the planet. The caveat is that once Holy is summoned, Meteor, Weapon, and everything else will disappear, possibly including every single person. It's up to the planet to decide what is good for the planet and what is bad for the planet. I think this moment of realization for the heroes is particularly effective. The threat of Meteor is so immense that the only possible way to stop it has the potential to be equally devastating for humanity as Meteor crashing in the first place. If we take Cid's idea of the planet as a sick child, then the cure is just as harmful as the illness. It does make you question, what is humanity's relationship with nature as it is? Not good. But we've already discussed how Bugenhagen gives light to the possibility of an equilibrium, of a balance. No matter what, it's our only hope to ensure a chance for survival. But when Eris died, the white materia that could summon Holy was lost at the altar. Dismayed, the heroes feel helpless, but Bugenhagen merely laughs because he has some knowledge about what to do. He goes to put a special key in place which creates a waterfall that activates a device seemingly made of coral. Inside the waterfall, we are treated to visions of Eris, reminding us of our fallen comrade. We see that, in fact, Holy is glowing green. Eris already prayed for Holy. Cloud bemoans the fact that he didn't recognize Eris's plan while he was asleep. He regrets being unable to stop her when Barrett corrects him and says "we," showing just how close our heroes have all become as a team. Tifa reminds us that we cannot waste what she's given us. Something is in Holy's way though. Sephiroth. As a side note, to see Bugenhagen one more time in the game, you must return to Cosmo Canyon one last time. Doing so will reward you with Nanaki's final weapon, but also result in the death of Bugenhagen, whose old bones now must rest. Nanaki wants to stay to protect the canyon as his father once did, but Bugenhagen sees that Nanaki's future is brighter than that. He isn't meant to defend this valley. He's meant to be bold and adventurous. That is what will teach him more. That is what will give Nanaki purpose. He begs him to go with Cloud and find his purpose. Outside, Cloud and Tifa sit by the fireside and ask Nanaki what happened with Bugenhagen. Unable to say it and face reality, he makes up a story about Bugenhagen being inspired to go out and travel around because he enjoyed the airship adventure to the City of the Ancients so much. It's a tragic moment, but really helps to bring Nanaki's character arc to a close. As we begin leaving, Cait Sith checks in on us to report what he's heard. The Juno cannon has been moved to Midgar. Rufus intends on using it to shoot at the barrier around North Crater so Shinra can take credit for defeating the global threat. The arms dealers finally have got the big gun ready, which is now renamed as Sister Ray. With that, Cloud and the team must make it to Midgar to try and put a stop to Shinra once and for all. Cloud's team leaves the City of the Ancients just as a new threat, Diamond Weapon, appears out of the ocean to wreak havoc on Midgar. Barrett panics, wondering what's going to happen to Marlene. Kate Sith assures him that Marlene is in a safe place with Eris's mother. In fact, they're currently in calm. Barrett doesn't seem pleased with that answer, so Kate Sith releases his frustration and asks, "As long as Marlene is safe, who cares what else happens, right?" He piles on with another question. "When you blew up the Sector 1 reactor, how many do you think died?" Barrett tries to remain strong and says that casualties are to be expected when you try to protect the planet. Kate Sith is incredulous. The lives that Barrett diminished callously lost everything, as did their families. As I mentioned before, we can reasonably assume that when President Shinra told us that this was a waste of fireworks, followed by the explosion in the Sector 5 reactor, that President Shinra himself ordered the Mako reactors to be blown up. After all, Jesse's bomb was meant to only destroy the machinery within, not the whole building itself. Reeve doesn't know this, so he mocks Barrett's resolve to protect the planet. He sees it as an excuse to do whatever Barrett wants to do, without anyone able to criticize his action. Barrett rightfully retorts that a person working for Shinra has no right to say anything about immoral acts. Hilariously, Kate Sith says he can't do anything about that. Benefits must be too good to pass up though, eh, Reeve? Let's not forget Kate Sith kidnapped a child to stay on the team. Though it is possible that Kate Sith had already relocated Marlene and Eris's mother to Calm back when he initially betrayed us, and used it as a tool to keep helping. Maybe. It's a good moment for both characters at the very least. Fight with Diamond Weapon leads into some of the absolute best cinematic elements in the game, because Diamond Weapon and Rufus intend on firing at will at each other. Diamond Weapon turns around to attack Midgar again. Meanwhile, the Sister Ray charges up a powerful attack. Every single one of the remaining Mako reactors excited to fill the Sister Ray with tremendous power. It requires so much energy that the whole city briefly goes dark as the beam continues to collect energy. Finally, it's ready to fire. And that single shot shakes the very foundation of the city so much that all the windows shatter. Stabilizing structures fall down to the surface. At the same time, Diamond Weapon had its own weapons ready to fire from its body. The Sister Ray's shot speeds straight through Diamond Weapon, instantly killing it, and continuing to move forth all the way to the North Crater, dissolving the encasement protecting Sephiroth. Rufus gets word that Diamond Weapon's attacks are on their way. We get this really fascinating shot of Rufus's eyes showing an underlying determination to win, even to dominate. Surely he feels no regrets, but does he feel he's won? Is he counting on Cloud to finish the job now? Has he come to terms with dying a warrior's death? What is he thinking in this moment? It's not clear, but his death is spectacular, violent, and brutal. There is no grand, ceremonious death for this man that sought to control with fear. His time has come as a result of his own actions, and his father's actions. But you can never say Rufus backed down from the challenge. Something about these eyes, despite being painted onto polygons, expresses so much that makes me wonder about the interiority of Rufus's world. What were his true motivations? What insecurities was he battling? We'll never know, but what we do see are the remaining executives beginning to plot. They are concerned that the Sister Ray needs time to cool, but there's no way to operate it. Now that the president is dead, Heidegger and Scarlet intend to do things their way, and have Reeve arrested once Reeve starts to give away his act as a double agent to inform Cloud in real time what's going on. But there's nothing to be done. Someone is controlling the mainframe for Sister Ray. That person is Hojo, who's responsible for the birth of a god. Midgar is currently under martial law. There is no way to travel through the slums up to the upper levels, so that leaves only one option. We must parachute down into the city to successfully put a stop to everything happening. Along the way in the subway, one final encounter with the Turks ensues. Elena reveals their orders are to kill, and that's just what they'll do. Interestingly, we get a small glimpse into Reno's character here. He's not really up to the task. None of the Turks get deep characterization, but I do appreciate appreciate that Reno does have these moments where he doesn't seem to be at all into what he's doing, though will still follow orders. Rude has a crush on Tifa, which plays out while fighting. He's programmed to attack other members of your party, not Tifa. Elena is the new eager recruit that wants to please Sung. Sung is missing, likely hospitalized from his injuries at the Temple of the Ancients, but he's fairly stern and a loyal commander to his superior. They don't get a lot in this game, but these small elements to differentiate them goes a long way. Making our way through the city leads to more confrontations, and this time we're greeted by non-fighters, Gyahaha and Kahaha. Their mecha, the Proud Claude, stands in your way. Once you defeat them in a steam-rolling tank, you can make your way to the Sister Ray infrastructure. There he stands, huddled over the controls of the Sister Ray, a madman without morals. While Sid is a bad man, his marveling of science reminds us that anything is possible. With Hojo, we are shown the negative consequences of what's possible. In many ways, this is the man that is the true villain of the game. This man that experiments on people without ethical concerns. For example, when you take the submarine to the bottom of the ocean floor, there is one location called the Sunken Galnica that you may enter. It's an incredibly small dungeon in the game. Inside, you'll encounter the Turks Rude and Reno if you head there before entering Midgar. They're searching for weapons and materia developed for destroying Sephiroth. The materia inside the Sunken Galnica is extremely valuable and well worth the effort of retrieval, but beware what lurks in the depths. The Turks are the least of your concerns. These weapons of Shinra's are no mere arms, but freakish beasts of enormous strength. Each of the 3 unknown monsters possesses the ability to easily wipe out your teammates with a single blow. These are by far the most powerful enemies you have faced. They are the most recent incarnations of Hojo's personal demons. It truly makes you wonder, what did Hojo do to create these things? And more importantly, how much further is he willing to go? 5 years ago, when Sephiroth questioned whether he was an experiment too, if he was as different as the monsters in the Mount Nebo Mako reactor, are confirmed here. Hojo is the one responsible for Sephiroth's reign of terror, for the summoning of Meteor, for the end of the world. Charging the Sister Ray to give Sephiroth more power, to give his son more power. Let me explain. Years and years ago, a team of scientists led by Professor Gast occupied the Shinra mansion. A young Turk, Vincent Valentine, stood guard, but had a special attachment to one Lucretia, the memory of whom kept Vincent restless all these years, and motivated him to join us in our fight against Sephiroth. One day, something in the relationship went south, and who was there to comfort Lucretia in her time of need? Hojo. We soon learned that Hojo had ulterior motives in forming a relationship with Lucretia. We see her holding her belly, then learned that Hojo has started experimenting on humans. Hojo defends himself by saying, "She and I are both scientists." After that, a child was born to Lucretia. That child's name was Sephiroth. Lucretia begins suffering from the experiments performed on her during her pregnancy. When Vincent raises his concerns and asks Hojo to do something for her, Hojo shakes his head and shoots Vincent. Rather than letting Vincent die, though, he performs yet another experiment to test human endurance and the possibility for metamorphosis. Lucretia can be found alive in a secret cave late in the game. We learn from her that the experiment that Hojo performed was to put Genova cells inside her, likely in her womb to conceive a child like Sephiroth. The power of those cells has kept her from dying. She often thinks of her child, a child that never once felt the warmth of a mother's touch or her love. She feels she can't even call herself Sephiroth's mother, as her own personal curse. She begs Vincent to tell her whether her own child is alive or not. She heard the news about what happened to him 5 years ago, but he remains in her dreams. Cloud steps in to explain, but Vincent stops him. Vincent lies to her and tells her that Sephiroth is dead. To think, in the name of science and his own sick, twisted curiosity, this man has created unrecognizable monsters, chimeras that are perversions of nature and science, not to mention crushing the monsters he's created for sport that were terrorizing Nibelheim. He's totally lacking in a moral compass, using his own cardinal directions to take us all straight to hell. He's ruined a woman in his pursuit of knowledge and tormented his own unknowing son into believing his true mother is an alien from another planet, creating an emotionally stunted man that completely loses it when he begins to think that he might be a lab experiment. But Sephiroth is not the only child, nor is Lucretia the first mother that has suffered in Hojo's wake. There is another. In Icicle Inn near the North Crater, there is an abandoned room with computers in the back. Interacting with the computers shows us recordings created by Professor Gast. There are 4 in total, and they all show Professor Gast with a woman named Ifalna. Professor Gast wants to learn more about the Cetra as part of his research for Shinra. She tries to explain the relationship that the Cetra have with the planet, but it's difficult for her. She begins by saying something fell from the sky, making a large wound. Thousands worked together to heal the planet, but only the planet was able to heal itself over time. Eventually, the planet's Cries spoke to the Cetra and told them to leave, to prepare to part with the land they love. As they were about to leave, something appeared that looked like them, that looked like their dead mothers, their dead brothers, their dead family. They called it the Crisis from the Sky. Initially, it approached as a friend, only to betray their trust and finally gave them the virus. Every Cetra that became infected transformed into mad monsters. Then it moved along to other Cetra clans and spread its virus to them too. In the second recording, you learn about VII. In this recording, you learn that the Crisis from the Sky was named Genova. The planet knew that it must destroy Genova. The planet cannot fully heal so long as Genova exists. A small number of Cetra were able to defeat Genova, confining it safely. By then, the planet had produced VII, but they were no longer necessary to use against Genova. VII remains dormant because the planet is watching over Genova at this time, waiting for it to make a move and escape its confinement. The third recording is a confidential one that shows Ifalna's daughter's 10th day after birth, the father being Professor Gast. It's a sweet moment of levity as Gast only wants to record his daughter he's proud of. The video doesn't work, but the microphone picks up that they want to choose a name for their angelic baby girl. Their girl's name is Eris. Professor Gast sends out a red flag by promising to protect Ifalna and his child no matter what. Ifalna is comforted by his words and Gast gives her a hug when suddenly someone comes knocking at the door. Who should it be but Shinra soldiers, followed by one Professor Hojo. He'd been searching for 2 years to find Ifalna and her child. Ifalna offers herself in place of Eris, but Hojo will not be deterred. He wants both of them for his experiments. He believes his experiments will change the future. Hojo is annoyed with Professor Gast for putting up a fight, but soon notices the camera recording them and orders it destroyed. What remains are the audio logs. Professor Gast tells Ifalna to take their daughter and run. Gast is shot to death. His lover and daughter are kidnapped. Hojo finds Gast's previous recordings and takes a copy for his own research. You, as Cloud, are left there to your own devices, knowing that there are no limits that Hojo will not cross. He is a sociopath that sees himself as the ultimate subject, performing horrific experiments to all objects he finds fascinating. He's without human emotion, torturing Cloud for his failure as a Sephiroth clone, kidnapping Nanaki to force him to procreate with Eris, turning normal soldiers into fierce monsters, creating unfathomable horrors to his heart's delight, kidnapping a mother and child to perform experiments, ordering a man killed, impregnating a woman to experiment on her womb to create a super soldier, only to abandon that child within and without love, and laughing about it, laughing at the boy he's created as a lab experiment, because his unknowing son hates him and has no respect for him, and worst of all, becoming a god himself. If there's one good thing we can say about Hojo, the torture he puts other people through, he's willing to put himself through as well. Meaning, he injects himself with Genova cells, which results in a disgusting 3-phase battle where you fight him until the Genova cells take effect and mutate him into a hideous melting freak that explodes into a cloud of gas and reforms into a serpentine creature. This is the man of your nightmares, and the instigator of all the horrors in the game. Without him, none of this tragedy would be possible. Beating him puts a stop to the canon, leaving you with only one option: to finally go to the North Crater and face Sephiroth, the one-winged angel. When everyone boards the airship, Cloud gives a rousing speech to probe what everyone's motives are. With every executive of Shinra out of the way, Shinra is finished, and now it's time to challenge Sephiroth. There's only 1 week left before Meteor crashes down. What are we all fighting for? To save the planet? For ourselves? A loved one? Cloud believes everyone must be fighting for themselves in some respect. He asks everyone to find out what they are fighting for. The team head out while Tifa remains behind. With no one to return to before the big fight, Tifa feels all alone. The only person she really has is right in front of her. They leave the highland to talk on the surface. They aren't sure if anyone will return, but vow to fight alongside each other no matter how bad it gets. Tifa gets emotional when talking to Cloud about what she experienced in the live stream with him. She heard him calling her name deep in her heart. Cloud feels the desire to say something to Tifa, and we get a sense of their unspoken love. Tifa tells Cloud that words aren't the only thing that tell people what you're thinking. She tosses her hair back and everything goes black until you see the two leaning against each other. It's dawn, but Tifa wants to try to sleep a little bit longer, worried that this will be the last time she's together alone with Cloud. A touching display of humanity in these moments. Back on deck, the lovebirds feel lonely on the highland, but they're not alone. Everyone has returned, and most of them saw what happened between Cloud and Tifa, much to the embarrassment of Tifa. She falls to her hands and knees, bent over butt first toward Cloud, probably for the second time in the last day. The whole team is there, but we're still missing one person. Although she's not here with us, she left us a window of opportunity. And although she died, she was a character that looked toward the future. Whether it was as a way to stop Sephiroth from destroying the world, or something as simple as a date with the cute boy she had a crush on, Eris wanted to live. Her death has had an enormous impact on the characters. But it's her life that has had more meaning. Cloud recognizes, despite only knowing her for a short time, that the memories he's holding on to are holding him back, holding her back from joining the live stream. It's time to move forward, do away with the grief that consumes them, and fight for the future that she wanted. We can't just let it end with that smile. We have to do something. The North Crater is a truly bizarre place with the skeletons of enormous beasts serving as bridges, floating pathways, and Mako glowing all around. This feels like the end of days. The long journey to the bottom of the crater finally brings you to a pieced-together bridge where Jenova fights you one last time. Defeating her will cause the ground beneath you to disappear, leading your party to fall down deeper into the depths. Down there, your whole team loses control of their body as they float around Sephiroth. Here is the final boss. Here is what we've been fighting for. The future. All life is at stake here, right now. Behind Sephiroth, we can see that Eris's prayer, holy, is shining. But it's not just Eris's prayer. Hers is the prayer of Avalanche, Marlene, Dyne, and all the living beings on Earth that choose life. There's no backing down now, and there's no getting off of this train. Everyone is resolved to fulfill their duty, and then the fight begins. Sephiroth evolves into a titan, his deformed figure a blockade in front of Holy, but this is no matter. Your team has the strength to defeat him, causing him to reach his final form, the one-winged angel. This fight is epic as hell because he summons a meteor, or perhaps a comet, mid-battle every so often to pummel you with, and it's a 2-minute long animation. Let's go, baby! This is what we're here for! But he too can be defeated, disappearing into shards of rage and despair as he's crushed by his opponents. After the battle, everyone looks weary, but it's all we could do. Sephiroth has been defeated, but it had no bearing on stopping Meteor. Now all that's left to do is pray Holy will succeed. It's up to the planet to decide what remains and what must go. As everyone heads out to an uncertain future, Cloud can sense that Sephiroth is still around. His will is pulling at Cloud to reunite with him one last time, to settle the score once and for all. 2 lab experiments brought to relevance by Hojo's hands, coming face to face to duel it out. Both men have suffered greatly and come to the realization that they are essentially Shinra products. But how they respond is radically different. While Sephiroth becomes delusional and takes his anger out on the world, Cloud does not. He tries to put on an act, but the warmth of his friends has given him the support he needed, the support Sephiroth lacked in a critical time, to heal. As Cloud makes his way through a tunnel through the life stream, he opens his eyes and finds Sephiroth smirking at him with bloodlust. Cloud finishes him off with one final Omni Slash from hell. And Sephiroth is gone forever, lights bursting out of him as his life energy returns to the planet. The life stream surrounds Cloud. Sephiroth's red energy makes one last attack. It's likely that Aeris continued to keep a watchful eye over Cloud in this moment as the life stream returns to help Cloud reach out for a grasping hand. Tifa tries to pull him out, but the North Crater is collapsing in on itself, forcing Cloud to save both himself and Tifa, once again coming to the rescue. Cloud believes that he understands what the planet wants. He believes he can meet Aeris there. Holy is changing the life stream below as it begins to take effect. Cloud and Tifa notice the rest of the team, and the high wind comes crashing through. The North Crater erupts as a volcano does, and our heroes narrowly escape death through the fallen high wind. Sid nearly falls off the high wind in the blast, but manages to hold on long enough to grab hold of the controls to fly away to safety. Meanwhile, in Calm, Marlene senses the flower girl, Aeris, and goes to look outside. It appears that it's too late. Meteor is just above Midgar. Its energy is radiating out all throughout the land. Tornadoes are forming, ripping apart the city down below. The infrastructure wasn't built to withstand high winds, so huge pieces of debris go flying, including the Shinra ink sign. How's that for symbolism? The storms continue to tear through the city of Midgar, many of the people losing their lives to the powerful tornadoes ripping through with electric force. Mako reactors begin to explode independently from the pressures of the storm and the lightning. And then, before Meteor can make impact on top of Midgar, Holy shoots out to put a stop to Meteor. The blinding light can be seen all the way in distant Calm, when suddenly Meteor impacts Holy. The battle between the ultimate black summon and the ultimate white summon can be seen all the way from Cosmo Canyon. However, Meteor will not be stopped. It pierces through the holy firmament. It appears there's no hope left. Barrett is confused and angered about what he sees, asking to find out what's going to happen to Midgar. He thinks they have to do something to help. The last remnant of Shinra remaining, Reeves, as Kate Sith, already told the populace to take refuge in the slums. Nanaki doubts we were successful. He thinks it's too late for Holy. Midgar is the least of their concerns. The whole planet is about to go. When all seems lost, Tifa notices something in the distance. The life stream snakes its way out of the planet, pouring out from every section of the planet to help save itself. Is this the work of Aeris? Or is the planet finally able to heal itself, protect itself without the threat of Genova? All of the life stream pours out of the planet toward Holy and Meteor as the people watch on. Slowly but surely, all of the remaining life stream that hasn't been burned for energy by Shinra makes its way to Midgar, the last hope for humanity. When the life stream makes contact as Meteor continues to push through Holy, a bright light spreads across the planet, blinding everyone. Once more, we see Aeris praying, as we did at the beginning of the game. It ends where it begins. And then, nothing. But the epilogue shows that 500 years later, Nanaki remains and he has pups of his own. Considering he's the last of his species, I have questions about who the mother is. However, Nanaki and his pups journey to the edge of a mountain and overlook to see a Midgar that's overrun with vegetation. If you listen carefully, you can hear the laughing of children. Thus concludes Final Fantasy VII. The ending is a stunning way to leave this epic adventure of eco-terrorism, capital punishment, unethical science, aliens infecting a planet, and the birth of a god. Yet the ending remains ambiguous. Did the planet decide to remove humanity to heal itself? Or have humans decided to move on from industrial concerns and live at peace with nature? Is that a human child laughing, or is that the voice of a Cetra? Perhaps it's merely the voice of one of Nanaki's children. Leaving the story open-ended like this poses excellent probing questions for what to make of this story. As I mentioned before, this video game is an exploration on the theme of life. Life for the planet and life for humans. To fully explore life, one must explore the consequences of death. This game is heavily concerned with the environment and the effects humans have on it. Through the actions of Shinra, humanity's greed and avarice have ruthlessly exploited the planet, literally killing it, using the life energy of the dead, burning up all the wisdom, knowledge, and memories those souls gave back to the planet. Continuing down this path in the name of money and power, acting without scruples, senselessly using others as objects for sculpting to your will. Show the dangers of capitalism. By using Genova's cells to create soldiers that enforce the will of a hegemonic corporation in-game, the game is saying that capitalism is alienating and destructive. But as we saw with Barrett, he briefly considers the fruits of Shinra's labors as a sacrifice worth making when out in the extreme climate up north. One character in Cosmo Canyon poses the question, can people used to Mako energy ever go back? Can people willingly give up their modern conveniences for the sake of the planet and for their own sake? Or will greed bring us all to an early death? When Cloud asks everyone to find what they are fighting for, I think this is a big clue for what to make of the ending. He wants them to seriously consider the consequences of fighting a god and make sure they know what truly motivates them. Cloud is fighting for revenge and to find forgiveness within himself by closing this chapter of his book. Barrett is fighting for his daughter Marlene. Nanaki is fighting to prove himself as great a warrior as his father. Every person has a different motivation imbued by strong emotions, none of which have anything to do with greed for power or money. They're fighting for themselves. But here at last they are all self-actualizing as characters and finding their humanity in their last stand against God. Because humans are not solely motivated by greed, humanity can live to see another day. Consider the following. In the city of Gongaga, where a Mako reactor exploded, killing the locals that worked there. The common refrain is, people can live without Mako reactors. At Mount Corel, while walking through this rundown hellhole, along the railroad tracks, nestled in a defaced mountain, the land nearly desolate, life goes on. There is a bird nest with younglings freshly hatched. And by killing Sephiroth, a god, and the end result of a capitalist pursuit that enforced Shinra's global hegemony on capital, humanity can reject that pursuit, leaving it behind to decay and live in balance with nature. Life can go on. There is another way for us to organize ourselves and be happy. What that way is, the game never says. But this phenomenal, complex, wonderful game about identity, self-acceptance, and environmentalism will likely always be my favorite video game. I hope you enjoyed my video, and I would love to hear what you take away from the game. Thank you.